everyone.
Call the meeting to order. Would you please stand and salute the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome to the meeting. The first thing is a public hearing. A solid waste storage ordinance. We tried to pass in the last year.
That is correct. So this, if you're like, there you go. All right, they should be up there. Well, so, the main purpose of this ordinance is to, currently, if people take refuse and they don't do anything with it and they just, you know, you just take bags and you pile it around your home and it's outdoors and not in a container, and the code officer has no enforcement ability at all. So what this is not meant to go around and tell anybody how to do their business, but if you have neighbors that are being impacted by raccoons or any of those, you know, varmints because of one person's either inability or unwillingness to take care of their trash that they're leaving around their yard, this would give him some ability to try to get them into compliance. So basically says that your trash when it's outdoors should be inside of some kind of a container.
Are we planning on if this were approved by the voters, are we planning on any proactive enforcement, or is this basically complaint-based?
Yes. Complaint-based, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have the staff to go around and look for problems. We have enough. We have enough things for them to do without finding more. So yes, it would be a complaint-based system.
This is for commercial.
Well, I believe it applies to everybody. Yep. I don't think it has language that. I'm sorry, I've been looking at a lot of spreadsheets and stuff trying to read into this.
It says residential.
Okay, residential. Yep. Sorry, I didn't want to say something before I looked at it, I guess.
So then it wouldn't apply to commercial.
Correct.
I know there's been complaints about the fills.
Are you proposing an amendment? Can we amend this at this point?
You can. We have to hold a public hearing on any ordinance that you're going to put forth, but you don't sign the warrant until your April meeting. So there is time for changes. That's why you're looking at it tonight. So if there's any public changes or changes you want to make to it, we still have the time to do it. This is the exact ordinance that was done, that you presented to the voters last year.
Do you see any, for people who live next to Phil's?
Yes. People who live nearby. They let the containers, I think there's two of them there.
Well, for public discussion, public comment.
Yes.
All right, fine. I think it's noteworthy. You're trying to do something about this. But as an individual who's lived across from a rental unit that's had significant waste problems over the last 10 to 15 years, this ordinance won't do it. Your definitions are limited. They're really not good.
What would you suggest?
I got a bunch of equipment. First of all, dumpster. I mean, just say a container could typically constructed, and it has to have covers. Solid waste, again, commonly referred to as trash in that. But how about yard waste? What do we do with recyclables? What do we do with hazardous waste? What do we do with appliances? What do we do with construction debris? Tires, electronics, hazardous waste, waste oil. There's also a bill, I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but I know there's a bill before the legislature defining yard waste and that as household or trash, so. There, the biggest problem I have with this, there's no teeth to it.
There's no sanction.
There's nothing there, so what? So so you've defined these things and you said what it is. Well, the first question I have, who's going to enforce it? You've kind of alluded that the codes officer is going to enforce it. Do we realistically think that the code officer with only 10 hours or maybe 16 hours in this town is going to do anything with this? I doubt it. I doubt it very much.
Well, they can't do anything now because there's
Well,
no,
no, even if this ordinance was put in effect, you wouldn't have the time.
how many violations do
Oh, I
we
think
think we
there's a-
have?
I think
That's
there's
a question for the
significant.
town manager. I mean, like, how often have we gotten a complaint that we could not respond to because we didn't have the authority?
I'm only aware of 2 or 3 residences that are generating any, I mean, there's always, you know, like one-off complaints, but I know of 2 or 3 that are habitual offenders, if you will, of the same problem that.
And do you think that Andy will be able to, if there is a complaint, be able to respond to it?
He was one of the ones that actually requested having some language drafted so that he could do
Well,
something.
and that's understandable that he has some language because it's the way the ordinances are written right now and in place, he doesn't. That's so true in so many other instances. If you call in and say something about a certain complaint, is why I don't have the authority. Putting that aside, again, I think this board is going to have to look at the hours that he has available because in and amongst his other duties, I doubt that he would have. The biggest thing is where's the teeth in it? So he goes and cites it. He says, well, all right, fine, please clean this up. I have been dealing with a situation for 10 years that I've even given up calling as a town officer that or anybody. Nothing happens.
Well,
You-
nothing can happen now
No,
because
please,
there's no
please.
ordinance.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking. I
Well,
live on
but-
Maple Street. I go by it every
Yeah.
day.
That's all being said, but even if this were to pass, there's no teeth in it. You gotta put some kind of carrot and stick in there, the stick obviously being some kind of substantial fine. I would suggest starting at $500. It's, I mean, $100.
Well, we do want it to pass.
Well, yeah, and your people are gonna ignore it. The other thing is what are you gonna do? So, all right, so we have this, it's supposed to be in a container, a trash container. What do they do if they pile the stuff outside the container? I mean, I can go right there opposite my place and, it's piled up right there, right outside the container. What are you gonna do with the recyclables? You know, at least you put in there something about screening. Make it that these dumpsters, these things like that are somehow screened. Most commercial places or any place like that will have them in some kind of screened enclosure where. I mean, they're just my container. I mean, yeah, like I said, I think it's noteworthy that the town is trying to do something with it, but. I just think this is going anywhere. So if you wanna do
But-
something with this, let's take some effective action.
So my question is, if the ordinance isn't in place, does it have to cite fines or anything? Or is that something that we, if the ordinance is in place, that we as a board can then affix fines?
The
to
ordinance has some
afterwards?
authority once there are rules in place, but like, what he's saying, if you want the townspeople to have that in here so that they can decide what those are, that's perfectly reasonable too. Or we could add language at the bottom that says that the select board may, you know, do X, Y, and Z to enforce this. Generally speaking, any ordinance that's passed by the legislative body implies that the municipal officers have the right to find ways to enforce it, but those are limited under state statute. So if you want to move it to be like your own set of rules, you can do that too. So These are legitimate, questions, I think, for you guys to, or for the public and, or everybody to wrestle with about which direction you want to go.
You,
I think it's good with Paul mentioning about specifics, but whether or not that we have a long and a code person with a lot of hours, just because currently that doesn't exist, this in the future it won't. You don't take stop signs down just because the police department. So I think it's really vital and really long past due that we do something. And hopefully it would be our long-term intent to get somebody that can have more hours to enforce it, but I think he's right about the fines. I don't know if you do it like, like if there's a warning, like 1, 2, 3, you folks could discuss all that. I don't think the 500 is reasonable, like start at 250 with a maximum of 500. There's all kinds of ways to kick this around, but I do think it should have some teeth with some money fines involved. And when you talk about the individual items, you talked about tires and hazardous materials and so forth. You could list that and say, these are some of the items, but not necessarily limited to just this. And at the discretion of the board of selectmen, can be considered waste, to kind of give it an overall umbrella. So I think Paul's right. There needs to be more content to it to make it have teeth.
Andy,
I think you ought to make sure it's also not just residential. Look at some commercial places around town here that just absolute dumps.
And so if we fix fines, how does that work in the future? Just like with our transfer station, things, do we have to revisit it and redo the ordinance, or is that based upon the select board making the determination as we see fit?
If it's in the ordinance, then you're binding it to
that dollar
the
amount.
town meeting essentially.
Exactly. So
So if
I
you
would
want, we
rather
could
not
add-
have a dollar amount. I would rather, because I don't want to have to revisit it anytime that we need to make a change. I would rather have it say that the select board can, assess the fine or whatever.
Schedule.
Without, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, without having a number affixed to it, because I don't want to have to go back every single time to ask the question to change the
Yeah,
amount.
I mean,
So-
that's a very appropriate approach. Because I agree with you, Kristen, is to lock things in a dollar amount. And then
Yes.
over years, if they
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It just gets
It's not the
diluted.
same.
But there has, to me, to ordinance that has any effect, has to have something in there. Who's going to be the authority to level that fine? If it's this board, and it probably should be this board, fine. But at least, put something in there so that people say, when we violate this, and the codes officer goes down there and cites them, they know that there might be some kind of, response, negative response.
would they have a period of time in which to remedy, and if they fail to remedy, then the fine is
Well, that's another.
something like
Well, I mean, I'm sure that they handle that way with, say, more than 3 unregistered vehicles. I'm sure there's he goes there and gives them, you have
Oh,
until
junk, like,
whatever. Yeah,
consider
junk
calling it a
cars that aren't
junkyard.
registered, yes.
Yeah.
You've got this much time to get rid of that, fourth
Right,
car
there
or
is
whatever.
standard kind of
Yes,
due process
Exactly.
language that's in.
And I think that is how I would envision this to work as well, because that's probably, how I, would work this, because it's all the same person doing it. If it's codes, it's codes. Why not have the same process? I think Mark
Oh,
fell
someone-
off.
oh, okay. And-
Hello? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, can I add something to that? This is
Yes.
Chuck Mayotte.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, what if we had like 3 strikes, you're out, give them like 2 weeks every time, and then if they don't do that, then instead of a fine, it's the cost to remove the material. And then add it to the next time they have to pay their taxes. Have a line item to the taxes. It's just that a thought I had.
No, I'm just gonna- anything that-
And yeah, who's gonna remove the
The
material?
only items that can, the only things or costs or of that nature that can be added to a tax bill is either the legislative body, which is the town meeting, residents, or the legislature allows that. The municipal officers don't have the authority to add something to a tax bill because a tax bill ends up being a taking of someone's property if it's not paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Joe
We
just,
can't really ask Tony does not want to do that or have his guys doing that. That is not their job that they want to be doing. They have far more valuable things, so.
And they don't have any basis in their private property.
Exactly.
and Joe just texted something instead of a tax bill. What if we put a lien on the property? And that's done, that was done in a place I was staying in Massachusetts. And if you sold your property, you had to pay that lien off.
Presumably, if someone, if we imposed a fine, whatever that might be, and the fine was not paid,
Right, it would
then
be,
we would be able to go to court. And the court could put a lien on the property.
right. And if you went and you sold it through a traditional process with a bank or something, the gentleman is correct, is absolutely correct. They would want all that stuff cleared up before they give you a mortgage. But if it was a private sale, it's almost like enforcing an unpaid oil bill, right? Like we would have to get involved in basically litigation to enforce that lien at some point.
I mean, there have been times when the code person has gone to court about something. And so that is possible. I mean, if it's a highly priced or egregious enough situation, it is possible.
You've done it before, Dave Shaw.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
In various times.
yeah. I mean, Andy's gone. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, we have one pending right now.
Yeah.
So,
I guess the bottom line is, I think however this was drafted, I think it needs to go back and be reworked to have additional input to it now.
We get time.
I know your warrant articles are coming up
End of the
here,
month.
yeah, so.
So, Paul, what I heard you say is, something about a dumpster being covered or
Mhm.
containers being covered,
Yeah.
including something about recyclables.
Well,
In addition to-
it does say recycle.
Let me give you an example, is that the place across from me for years, they would save their soda bottles, returnables in plastic bags. They would put them in the back of a pickup.
Yes.
The plastic bags deteriorate with weather, wind up in my yard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there has to be something more than just plastic bags and.
Yeah.
Most places, if they're gonna do that, a residential unit, make them screen it. Put them behind a wood fence or something like that, or something, so.
Possible.
Yeah,
Ideas.
I think the
And I,
document that's presented tonight needs to be reworked.
I think if we add, commercial and residential, add commercial to that.
Yeah.
And make sure that, it does say solid waste, it's trash, garbage, refuse, rubbish, recyclables, solid waste, or any other similar terminology. I think that pretty much covers.
Just strike residential. The owner of every,
Yeah, that is the way to do it too.
Exactly.
You're correct, Joe. We could do it that way.
Just take out residential, whichever
Yep.
way is the correct way, for sure. And I know that,
so how long would they have to remedy? If they're warned, how long do they have to remedy?
30 days, I would say.
Well, isn't
30 days?
something written in,
Well, I would just caution you that like,
Right.
a code officer is not a police officer. So everything, if somebody refuses compliance, we can issue them fine, but there's nothing to force them to pay it unless we take them to court. So everything ends up back in front of this board at any given time to decide whether you think the violation is egregious enough to engage the town's lawyer to file a lawsuit to force compliance. So always keep that in mind. There's no magic bullet in code enforcement. everything is basically just suing a resident for not doing what the town has told it to do.
So there's sort of a built-in process whereby we're getting to the point. I mean, they have a very large number of chances to remedy a situation before they actually come. to-
Correct. In my experience, it's like the code officer goes first and then he can't get anywhere. So then we bring the lawyer in and we say, send him a nasty letter that tells them we're gonna take you to court. And then after that, we bring that information to you folks to then say, do you want to pursue this and expend the money, or do you want to let it go? And that's how these things get
So
happen.
I'm just thinking about what people might see in the voting booth.
Sure.
And if we were to sort of outline that exact process in the ordinance, just so that people don't think it's gonna be arbitrary and immediate and that it's draconian and someone says, you owe us $500 because you left trash on your pickup truck. There's a process. People have a chance to fix it. And as long as, people make mistakes all the time, self-included. It doesn't go anywhere if someone remedies a mistake.
It's not going to be an easy process if you have a violation. I mean, one that always comes to my mind is the situation that was in Wilton and how the town of Wilton fought this one individual up there for years and years and years. And even though it did go to court, and even the courts were reluctant because they consider it an unjust taking. So it's regardless, but we need to have something on the books. Because like I said, I have lived across the street from it. The only way it got cleaned up this past summer is that finally the landlord finally decided he was tired of them. So that's the only conclusion I can come to, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And, probably 95% of the people in the town faithfully take their trash or that to the transfer station.
And the way that whole dumpster is set up, when it snows,
Yeah, they can't get
they
to it
can't get to it and
Yeah.
it's,
and so on like that. So I think there needs to.
there's a dead car next to it too. So it's like,
Well, there's a lot less though.
Yeah, it's a lot less than it was, right?
But they took them off to the parent.
Yes, so, but now Dave will tell you they're by his house, so.
Yeah.
So do we need a section where it's failure to comply? And some.
Yeah, so my note is to kind of either reduce the residential, remove the residential or whatever it is to include commercial, the language. Include the fine language that says that it will be that the fines will be set by the select board. Outline a process for the fines and the appeal in there. And I think that was your suggestion. Does that kind of cover every, you wanted to include fencing and stuff for dumpsters, so that's a choice for you folks too.
And I don't know that that'll be an easy thing because.
I'm not saying fencing so much, but
Well,
screening and
Well,
screening.
and I
can be
don't know
done
that that works with dumpster people, because if the dumpster is behind something and the truck can't get to it, then they can't get to it,
They
you
have
know,
to
it
make
depends on,
reservations. I mean,
exactly.
there's commercial projects where they come in, they open up the thing and.
Yeah.
Correct.
Like at McDonald's.
You can require it. I mean, it's done in other, it's basically whatever you
Yeah.
wanna have for rules, but
Well-
it has to have like, it basically has a gate on the front of it.
For example, the
And they have to get
Bangor
out and open
Savings
it.
Bank has one around their dumpster
Right.
in the empty bank in the center of town. But, that's a straight shot for people, the dumpster truck could go in there and
Well,
back up to it. But I think
mean-
that, residential properties, it might not be a simple.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. I see what you're saying. Okay.
It does take some forethought in placing in the dumpster.
Right.
Yes.
It's better than being right in the front yard.
Exactly.
That one
But
in the front yard.
I'm looking at one myself, and it was the conversation I had on the drive up here about the trash coming out of the
Snowbanks.
snowbank and into my yard now. So, and I watch that truck, jig jag around to get in there every other week to get the dumpster. So, I don't, Yeah, would I love to have a fence around it? But I don't know that that's something that I think you can
You know, it's a suggestion. but
figuring it out.
I guess overall, that would be a minor part, but
Yeah,
key things I think is that there has to be some kind of enforcement to realize.
Right, you can't leave it blowing over for 6 weeks and not do anything about it.
so,
Okay, so I think I have some feedback to try to rework this. I'll try to bring it back to your next meeting. So this is the public hearing. So the next time it'll just be kind of your document. Obviously, you can ask anybody you want, but this satisfies the requirement for the
Okay.
public hearing. If everybody's good, I'm not trying to tell everybody what to do.
Everybody's good? Fine, yeah.
yeah,
Good, Justin,
Yes.
could you, email out your edits or revisions, something like that?
All of the information that they get is
Might have
put
to
on the,
wait To the next packet.
that's generally when they would get it. If I have it ready before that and you would like to have it, I'm happy to send it to you, Paul, if you want to see it before that. Yeah, okay, I can do that. That's fine. Just make a note of that.
You all set with that, Mark?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, good. So, close the public hearing on the solid waste ordinance, and then there's a public hearing on the town beach ordinance.
Justin, can you give us an overview of this one?
Yes, so the main purpose of this was we currently have a sort of Parks and Rec, beach, whatever, it's called lots of, its name's kind of changed a lot, but it essentially is what governs the Parks and Rec functions of the town. There's supposed to be a Parks and Rec Commission, which does not function and does not exist. So like the budget for the Parks and Rec budget is supposed to be brought to you by that commission. That commission sort of is supposed to give you recommendations on how to operate either the beach or the or any other Parks and Rec functions of the town. It's which makes them different than a committee, which would be without a commission is set up by the legislative body, so it has some amount of authority to govern those programs. Under other town committees that you have, that you appoint, they sort of are given direction by the select board about what the goals or what their purpose is. And then you send them off on that charge, and then they make recommendations to you, and ultimately all those decisions come back. Right now, our ordinance doesn't function because they don't exist and they can't submit a budget to you, so I do it. Essentially. And then it just kind of defines the idea when we had discussion last year about whether non-residents were allowed to use town facilities. So the biggest one obviously is the beach. Like, do you want to allow this doesn't say that they can, but it puts that sort of authority back in your shoes after a public hearing to do that. So that if you wanted to allow somebody from, I don't know, Winthrop to come use this beach, then you'd set that up with some fee schedules or whatever it is that this board determined was in the best interest of the community and do that. But those are the basic things in here, I think. The rest of the stuff just is, I think is, I don't think there's anything in here that's not anything else that basically is just kind of common sense, like beach safety. If there's a person that keeps going down there and disturbing the safety of others and doing things that are inappropriate, that I or whoever is the town manager has the authority to say that, like, you can't come back for a week or you can't come back ever. Things like that, just so that there's some mechanism to sort of manage public facility. I think that's all that's really in here.
It's pretty much what we've seen before.
It's exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, you'll see it. This one doesn't have a date on it, does it? like the other one, did. I put the date in the footer of the other one. But you'll see there's, at the back of this ordinance is all this stuff. Rules of the town beach, the town beach pass application. It has all these like appendices, which would then be the board's responsibility to create after the ordinance is passed. This would just lead to further discussion amongst you and the residents about how you want it to work, but this would take the authority basically from its current mechanism and move it back to the select board.
So currently there is no regulation.
There is, but they kind of, it's a hybrid model between rec commission is supposed to govern the activities of the recreation programs, and they're supposed to recommend a budget to you. And because they don't function, there's nobody to create the recreation programs or recommend a budget. So I've been recommending the budget just to, and I don't think I'm the first manager that's been recommending the budget.
For instance, the pavilion down there, if somebody wanted to use the pavilion and needed to fill out an application, we need to oversee that application. And if there's a fee involved, like if they don't clean it up and they leave, 25 balloons and a bunch of dirty paper plates and grossness down there, then they wouldn't get back their deposit or whatever. So,
Trash
yeah,
cans and don't do
exactly.
anything
Yeah,
about it or whatever, right?
And so this way we'll be able to say, well, you made a deposit and you're not getting it back, and right now we don't have the ability to do that at all.
We've already considered the recreation budget schedule for next year. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's also, the whole budget's on your agenda for tonight as well, but yes,
Right.
you've done that particular thing.
And we haven't made any substantial changes. Basically, a continuing resolution of. I mean, that was a big issue last year. People wanted to see us continue to fund it at the levels that we.
The only changes, just to be honest, have to do with this building is housed in that budget. So the only changes are really about electricity costs and heat and things to take care of this building.
Pretty minor stuff.
Yes, you're very
Okay.
right.
And with this, I mean, this was a question that came up last year. This ordinance would give us a framework for potentially charging non-residents for access to the beach. We could if we wanted to.
Right, you could or could not. You could continue the current practice of not allowing non-residents down there, or if the town chose, this board would have the authority to let the non-residents in and then create that fee structure in any way that you wanted to.
Allow us to regulate
Right,
beach use.
That's correct.
right, under 4C.
Yep.
Beach passes shall be the following categories: annual, weekly, daily event. And then it says that the select board will be the one that adopts the fees for that and so on.
And if anybody wants to see what sort of these policies up here can look like, this ordinance is very much a clone of the one in the town of Reedfield. So if you want to go to their website, you could see examples of some of these other policies that this board will have to create, but like they're just examples of what it could look like. If anybody's interested.
Make enforceable beach rules and things like that, which have been kind of, they've been
Non-existent.
gray, like no dogs or whatever, no glass on the beach. There's been like that lovely list down there, but there's never really been enforceable.
All the time I took my grandchildren down there, they left for 45 minutes, I wouldn't take them back there again.
So we're all set.
I'm good with moving this forward.
So we've got any public comment?
Same last year, right?
Yeah.
It is, it's exactly the same.
You all set, Mark?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So we close the public hearing on the town beach ordinance. And next is the approval.
Can I ask something? What does this mean? Access to the town beach? Any vessel?
So the idea is to basically say that you can't pull a motorboat up to the beach and get out of it to get to the beach.
You gotta go to the boat launch.
You have to either go to the boat launch or you have to come by some other way to get in there. So,
And drive a jet ski up on it.
Right,
Right,
they'll just
right.
come flying through the buoys and.
No.
and that sometimes I think it's less of a problem in Monmouth because the state boat launch, is basically attached to it. But if you were in another community that didn't have that, there'd be no way for you to get there if you were on the other side of the lake, unless you got in your car. So tends to be more of a hassle. I don't think it's gonna be a big problem down there. So
No.
if you're not comfortable with that language, it could be taken out, but I think it's good practice probably.
Huh?
Is there a manager?
We've never, no, the job is open.
The job, and you're still advertising?
Yes.
Be a waterfront director?
Director, is that what yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay, so then we can move on to approval of the minutes for February 19th. And I said that I thought they were, as always. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
I was
We
okay with
accept the minutes.
There was a motion by Joe and a second by Ken to approve the minutes of February 19th. All those in favor?
Yes,
Thank you. Next are department reports. And
Paul is not feeling under the weather, so he won't be here today, just so you know. Yeah.
Ed is there.
And, there he is.
Chief Roy, do you have anything that you want? Oh, there you are. I see your face now. You want to go?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
So good evening. Haven't seen you guys in a while, so apologize for my absence. It's been a busy winter. Speaking of busy, fire department's been very busy the past month. I think we responded to almost 20 calls in February. As you know, we had a stretch of about a week and a half where we went to, I think it was 4 structure fires. One was out of town, but 3 were in town, so it was quite a busy stretch for us. The International Firefighter Cancer Symposium down in Miami went well. Had a good time going down there with a couple other firefighters, and we brought back a lot of good information we're going to share with our firefighters to make everybody safe and try to prevent cancer, in our firefighters from the various toxins that we're exposed to. So that's a work in progress, and we're planning to implement some more procedures to hopefully prevent that. Next weekend, March 14th through the 16th, we got about 9 of us will be going out of town to the town of Wells for a 3-day conference, and that's on tactical and leadership skills. So looking forward to that weekend of training. If you didn't get a chance to see it, last Monday we had Maine Cabin Masters episode air our show for the Monmouth Firehouse Museum. That came out really great. So just want to thank them and everybody that participated in that project or helped support it. Really appreciate the support. If you haven't seen it, it's you can go back now and look at past episodes and get to look at it. We're going to be probably showing it at our next business meeting next Thursday night for the firefighters that weren't able to see it. We had a raffle recently for that project. I want to thank everybody that helped with that project. It was very successful. So we're just continuing to raise money to support that project. We're still not done, even though we just had the episode. We still got some more projects we're working on. So it's a work in progress. This past Sunday, we had the community dinner down at the Packard Center. Went very well attended. That was the firefighters and the auxiliary members that put on a nice ham dinner for the community. So thanks to everybody that participated in that. And then the last thing I got is we got our bill recently. I forwarded it to Justin for his review. It's the repeater equipment for up on the Norris Hill Tower location. Came out to a little over $14,000, which is what we anticipated. And just to remind you guys, we'll be putting that forward to be paid out of the fire department equipment reserve account. So we should be all set for that. We still got to install the equipment. We still got a few hoops we're jumping through as far as how we're going to house it up there. There's some special permissions and stuff we got to jump through, and so still a couple months out before we get it installed. But I wanted to at least get Derigo wireless, paid for purchasing the equipment for us. And as soon as it's all installed, hopefully we'll have some improvement in some of our radio receiving and transmission. We've been having a lot of issues recently. I think it's a combination of things, not just the repeater. So hopefully that will be something that will improve things for our radio communications. And that's all I got. So any questions for the fire department?
I've got one.
Yeah.
Dan, where are we on the ISO topic?
That's a good question. I have not heard back from the gentleman. I've reached out 3 times and I keep getting the runaround. It sounded like the last time I spoke to him, we were looking at a potential improvement in our town rating for our fire insurance premiums, but he never got back to me because I was asking about challenging the water delivery rate, as far as what we can do with portable water shuttles and drafting water and whatnot to try to improve our rating outside the hydrant district. And that's something we'd have to do in the summertime. I tried to get that last summer and it just fell on deaf ears and he never got back to me. So yeah, I can reach out a 4th time, see where we're at. I mean, I'm hoping that we can do that test. So hopefully we can improve ratings townwide, not just in our hydrant district. I hate to keep kicking that can down the road, but I'll try again and hopefully get them to at least maybe get it done this spring or summer.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Oh, I got a question for you. What is the difference between rates in the hydrant area versus rates outside? I mean, percentage wise.
Yeah, I don't know what the percentage is or what the amount might be. It's quite a difference. Having a charged, water main going down your street, with hydrants that are pressurized. Back under the old system, we were rated a 6 or a 9. 9 was for outside the hydrant district. A 6 was inside. A 10 was an unorganized township that had no fire protection whatsoever. And then they changed it over the last 5 years, and now it's I think it's like a 5X or something like that. Is where we're at, or 6X, something like that. I still haven't even received the written report from this gentleman. We've done all the application. We've submitted all the paperwork on all our apparatus. And we're just waiting for their final letter to come out. And the last communication I had with him was it takes several months for them to produce the report.
Sure.
A lot of bureaucracy, I think.
Well, if you're going to be talking to them anyway, I'm wondering if you could ask him that question. And the reason I'm curious about it is that we're meeting on Saturday with the Water Association to discuss closing the final $2 million gap in the North Monmouth water main loop. And obviously that would mean a lot of savings to the residents of North Monmouth who live along that loop if there is a corresponding reduction in their insurance rates. I mean, I'm sure it's not going to happen overnight, but over the next year as the policies renew, if their ISO rating goes down, even if the ISO rating stays the same for the town or is somewhat close, if by installing that water main and having hydrants along that proposed loop means that there's going to be insurance policy savings for any residents along the loop or within a certain distance of those loops.
Well, and I think that that varies depending on your insurance company as well, because I know that when I bought my house in 2003 and my insurance agent first came out to talk about the barn and having livestock and all of that, he said, well, this doesn't show that you have any hydrant. And I said, well, actually I do. I have one at the corner of Gray Mill Road and one on Welch Avenue that you can get to. And he's like, well, that's gonna change it. So,
Right.
but I think it really varies depending on your insurance company as well.
Right.
And not just an ISO rating, but that will help, but it depends on what your policy is. So
Right.
I think that just letting people know that if there's a hydrant within so many feet of their house, it definitely does influence
Right.
to the good, your insurance.
Right.
Homeowners.
Well, I'd just be
insurance.
curious, so an industry insider is probably gonna know, an approximate. Are we talking 1%? Are we talking 10%? Are we talking 50%? I have no idea.
Well, I mean, for instance, when I told my insurance company that I had the Simply Safe system, it took $50 off my bill for the year. I mean, the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot, but it's $50. So,
Right.
so.
Spending on something else.
Exactly. Yeah, but, I think it really depends on the insurance company, so.
And it does, and there's so many things that are gonna affect insurance rates. Everything that's happened this year so far is
Sure,
gonna affect
of course.
insurance companies all over.
Yep.
Those, fires in California are gonna affect rates here, so. Yeah. Say yes or no.
Yeah.
You want that?
I'll try to get an answer, Kent, tomorrow. I'm in the office tomorrow, so I'll reach out to him first thing in the morning and see if I can get an answer before Saturday. I'll get back to you.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Dan.
All right.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Tony's probably gonna talk enough in a few minutes. I don't know. I don't know if you have anything else you wanna just wait. Do you have something you wanna talk about right now? Other than the budget? Yeah, okay, all right, go ahead then.
We'll save the budget.
All right.
All right, just an update, winter, my guys are quite happy to see February come to an end. So we worked 3 straight full weekends and then 1 day on another weekend, so that was a pretty good stretch. That big storm caused some grief with all that wind, that was pretty intense. The good news is it's March, we changed the clocks, went forward on Sunday, so hopefully that's a good omen. Another sign of spring is the little orange signs out there, we posted all the roads. I've had several visitors with questions about it. The reason we post the roads is freeze-thaw cycle. The underneath the road bed gets soft, road moves, causes damage, all the cracks in the road are attributed to the freeze-thaw cycle. So my message to everybody that comes is the reason we're doing this is I'm protecting the roads for the whole community. I know that some businesses wanna free pass, but pretty strict with it. Food gets a pass and animal bedding is automatic and then heat. Rubbish, I can give exemptions to, I make it strict. I don't want triaxle rubbish trucks coming. So I put right on it that they're limited to a single axle rubbish truck, but people have to have their rubbish picked up.
Your
The onus
horses are okay.
My horse can get his bedding.
The onus has to be on the company to oblige. Yeah, when I read it, I laugh every time because it's animal bedding.
Bedding.
That's right in the
Recall,
state
yeah.
law.
Feed too.
Yes.
Yeah, feed.
My hay's all put to bed anyway.
If you noticed at all on Main Street, we started changing street signs, so, they went from 6-inch that you can't read to 9-inch retroreflective. Some of the signposts are crooked. But I said, put the sign up anyway, so people see the road signs. We will fix stuff as the ground thaws. The one that comes to mind is somehow the stop sign at the end of Academy is at like 45 degrees. Those little things bug me, so. I don't know why, just always have.
Teenagers.
I just take the signs down.
It's tough for them to steal. We're doing a lot of equipment maintenance now. February was tough on us, tough on the equipment. The good news is we didn't have any severe breakdowns, which really hampered us. We were able to work through all that, so. It was a long month. We did well, glad it's gone. If anybody have any questions?
You know, I had lots of people comment about how great it was, the roads were after that windy storm, and how much work you guys were doing to pile up the snow to create the windbreaks and all of that. I had lots of comments from people along Main Street that were getting the wind whipping across their yard, so,
I did get a good dose overtime.
yeah.
Nope, the roads look amazing.
I also appreciated the Facebook response to some of the grumpy people who were like, how come the sidewalk isn't done? And the answer within like 30 minutes was, well, they're out dealing with snowdrifts so you can drive.
I was actually pretty proud of how quick we got on.
Yeah, you got to them.
No complaints.
Luckily, it was school vacation with the big
Yes.
storm, so that helped.
What I have is right in front of you. This is what I've been doing. So we can go through it as we move through the rest of the agenda.
I think the only question we had from
Sure.
before was whether or not you looked into that Howard Drive.
Yes, and
property.
it's one of your agenda items
Oh,
here.
it is?
It's number 9. That's what that is, map 43. See that?
Maybe,
Put your thoughts on that.
are you? I have, this must be, it's not on mine. Remember that whole conversation when I asked you what 12 was? But you must have, I printed off one and then you sent out another and I probably have to print an agenda, that's why, sorry, never mind.
All right, well, then maybe if it wasn't in your packet, then we should skip it. It's 12. Number,
Well,
I have it as
yes,
number 9.
but remember when I said, what does number 12, remember?
No, I do remember, because I remember
Remember
seeing it, because
that?
I was fighting, I was trying to do that from
Alright.
home and
Well,
it's
maybe
harder to do
if
at home
it's
because I have to
mess,
load it in.
About it, then I just printed off the wrong agenda, so.
It could have been me too. Do you have a 9 that says
It
that?
says
Doug?
9, but
Did you print yours from home?
I did. But I had something that I
Exactly.
thought we should do for number 12.
so.
I have a bunch
So-
of agendas there. All right. hold on. You guys didn't see it and it's messed up online, and I would recommend you skip it. I can tell you what the
No,
issue is.
it's
I'm
fine.
happy to do
No,
that.
I think we want to put it to bed, so I'm not worried about it, but I mean, I just printed off a different agenda, but I printed it off on Friday, so, you know. But I think that you had sent it and then resent it, so I might not have printed the.
Okay,
right
maybe
one.
that's what it was.
So,
I know I
I
was
think
fighting with it
that's
because it
probably
wasn't loading
what
right.
happened.
And I did it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, you.
And
you
then you
sent
wrote and
two
said,
different ones.
I think it's
Right.
wrong.
Printer.
Yeah, why not, right?
It's the printer.
I mean, it's
So-
my,
Don't
Can't-
worry about it. We're good. Never mind. Disregard my question.
You want to do it out of order. If you want to dispose of that item, we can do that if you want, or. It's number 9 on my agenda.
Giving the property tax on collected.
That's that Howard property
That we
that was one
wanted
of the ones in your
Yeah.
grouping last time that you
Yes.
set aside. I put it back on the agenda. The issue was that when the property sold to its current owner, the back taxes were not cleared up. So the taxes belong to the prior owner. And the new owner has been current the whole time. So it really is a choice of the board. You could hold those people to it,
The new owner.
the new owner, because it should have been dealt with at the closing.
Yes.
Or you can dispose of it. It's been years. I mean, the amount in here is, they've been current since, I have. Yeah, so they bought it in like 2020 and they've been current ever since. But it did have a significant. And when this was printed here, you know, the arrears were $23,000.
Did-
So this is legally attached to that property.
So how does something bizarre like that happen at closing that's not?
It was probably, my guess is it was a private transaction and it wasn't dealt with by a closing agent or anybody. Nobody noticed. Or they sold it and ran, right? Because they knew they owed it. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
but usually it's private transactions that this stuff doesn't get caught.
So what do we do?
You can dispose of it or you can,
If they have
or you
title
can,
insurance.
or you can leave it there.
We
So
can
they
make a claim on
bought
title
the
insurance.
property without doing a title search?
Hmm?
They bought the property without doing a title search?
I don't know the particulars. I just know that it was transferred in that year and ever since the current owner has been paying their taxes.
And I don't believe
And
there
there's
was a building on it. Was there a house on it then?
Correct. So
Sorry.
what happened was there was a split and that higher amount, the house is somewhere else and that one's current too. And those, and then this one, it was split off and this is now a land account that has much lower taxes on it. But these bills are really related to the house, which is no longer attached to the property in question.
Let's ask our resident real estate attorney.
So it's really kind of a mess, but
Yeah, but it's not our mess.
no, it's not.
Taxpayers'
Yeah,
mess.
that's not necessarily related to that piece of property. It's really related to the.
Correct, which it can't be attached to that.
Right.
Yes.
So it's,
Is there a tax lien filed?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes,
And so
on the split lot that doesn't have a house on it.
should always have a title search.
right.
Right, that's
Title
the,
insurance. So
that's
if
the
they-
issue.
If they had a title search and title insurance and you went after them for their taxes, title insurance
Covered.
would cover it. Correct?
Right, but a lot of people don't have.
No,
title.
I know, having been a mortgage loan officer for years, yes, I know. I don't think that you need it until you need it.
It's 20 grand
No, it's
plus interest.
Exactly.
Right, it keeps accumulating every day, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a significant amount of money. And you can just leave it there.
We could go after them.
Yeah, I mean, it will,
I mean, the present owners.
The present owners.
Well, they are the people who bought.
It's not really-
Without getting.
by land,
Presumably.
taxes go with land, not with
Yes.
people. So it's gonna go on the land and the land will be what we would take in order to recruit that. The only thing to consider is that the new owners are paying their taxes. In the circumstances of how they've gotten themselves here, I don't know exactly, right? But
Would you be willing to reach out to them to say,
sure, I can do whatever you folks want, yes.
yeah, I'm not prepared to write this off.
No,
This is-
I don't think it.
This is not our problem.
Exactly. And, you know, if we reach out to the new owners and say, look, this is there and.
But it is really our problem, because they owe us money.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
but, I mean, at one point, we were considering writing this thing off.
Yeah.
As uncollectible. I'm not prepared to do that.
It's not like a
That's-
disappearing mobile home. This
We have
is-
every reason to expect that we would get paid for this.
Exactly.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The land physically exists on the earth.
It exists
And
and
if
I,
they had title insurance. I mean, that's kind of when you went out, you know, purchasing the property, did you have a title search done? Were these liens brought up, and who did you use for an attorney, you know, like?
And
That's why we have malpractice insurance.
Yeah, so yeah, I'd like that conversation to happen with the new owners and then.
Sure. Yeah, that would be one of the questions,
Yeah,
if they did have a title.
yeah.
If they did have title insurance.
If it was your firm, then we don't want to hear about
It wasn't.
it. Of course not, no.
That would pay them, you know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
will fail to report back if I hear that it was Joe.
If something failed, if there's a failure, this is a failure, but that wasn't found or whatever, title insurance covers those type of fails.
Yeah, so they would get money. to Pay them.
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So, yeah,
yeah, they would get reimbursed. They
Who
would
was the
pay the
present
bill.
owner of that property?
He's gonna go check his client list.
His name is Richard Homer.
So, I'll say. I'll say. On to, select board reports.
I've got one. Trails Committee had a meeting yesterday evening, which is why I couldn't go to the function. And we got a couple things done. First, we put to bed the final report that will become our grant application to the state of Maine for this trail system that we're hoping to get funded behind RSU two, behind the high school and middle school, along the old cross-country trails that are back there. This report, it's been kind of a long time coming. We approved some TIF money to hire the consultant to write the report. And it's basically gonna be the appendix for our application, which is gonna be due in sometime in early June, I think, is when the application becomes, the deadline is. One of the things would be super helpful would be that the town issue a letter of support. So I would ask the board that we appoint the town manager to write a letter of support in regards to this application. And we are also, just FYI, going to be showing our plan to the planning board and asking for a letter of support from them. We'll also be hoping that the code enforcement and planning consultant would be interested in issuing some sort of written letter that says, yes, I've reviewed the application and everything looks reasonable.
So Justin's letter would cover us.
As a select board, yep. And then a code enforcement statement, as well as the, what's the planning person's?
Isabel?
Isabel's official title these days.
She's a contract planner is what she calls herself,
Okay.
I think.
So the contract planner for the town of Monmouth. As many letters of recommendation and support would be super helpful in terms of that. We will also be approaching the RSU for a letter of support as well. They're having a meeting this week, tomorrow night, something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
Yeah,
Is
Same.
Chuck getting one from Mary Beth?
I bet you he could probably do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that would be good too, because
Yeah.
then, because the age friendly,
Yeah.
that's one of our areas of
Yeah.
interest and there's also ongoing monies from the age friendly things,
Yeah.
the ARP and different things, so.
Great.
Yeah, she's
Grant
really.
proposal.
So just to keep everybody in the loop, the grant that we're applying for, our total project cost is projected at about $220,000. And that's because there's a lot of wet areas down there that require a boardwalk and some grading that's gonna make it suitable for people who are mobility impaired. This is supposed to be a trail that would be accessible to everyone. And so it's gonna be built pretty substantially. The grant that we are applying for requires a 10% match. So 220,000, 10% obviously means 22,000. The town is already from TIF funding has already put in about $7,000 or $8,000 for our consultant, somewhere in that ballpark. I think the trail committee will be coming back to the town for an additional, my math is right, $3,000 or $4,000, bringing the total to $11,000 or a 5% match from the town. We are planning on attending the RSU meeting, school board meeting tomorrow night. They're in the middle of budgeting as well, and we're asking them for a corresponding amount. So if the payback for the school system obviously is not just proximity and convenience, but it's also they get the benefit of having an outside classroom potential, a lot of outdoor activities, cross-country running, for example. So we're going to be talking to the RSU tomorrow night, FYI, and hoping that they will partner with the town 50-50 on the match piece. We also, unless there are any questions that I can answer on that, there's one other topic that we talked about. We talked about our survey, the official survey results from 120, 130. This is what Catherine was putting together for us, who was our survey tabulator. We got a good cross-section of folks to tell us what they were interested in terms of trails, tell us a little bit about who they were, and we've got a good cross-section of demographics of people. And also to sort of check in with people to see how they felt about the potential for golf carts, ATVs, and side-by-sides on public ways. And I don't know that there's ever been a time when 85% of the town has agreed on anything, but about 85% of the survey answerers said that they were interested and supportive of either just doing it or doing it with some reasonable restrictions. And there was an official vote of the Trails Committee last night to request of the select board that we move forward with some sort of implementation planning process in the hope of having a small scale trial for doing some sort of four-wheeled vehicles on public ways that connects local businesses to perhaps some of the densely populated parts of town. And to do that by June. So I would ask my colleagues here if you folks would be willing to have an ad hoc committee to come up with some proposed maps of where this might go, and to come up with some rules of the road in terms of reasonable public safety restrictions to make sure that no one's going to get hurt. We're not going to have mass casualty events. I haven't talked to the chief, but I've talked to the chief's boss. And it sounds like maybe the police chief would be interested in participating in such. Sounds like Tony might be interested because there might be some signage needs. It sounds like there's potentially someone from the ATV snowmobile group that would be interested in participating. I'm thinking a group of 4 or 5 people and maybe 2 or 3 meetings just to get some stuff on paper, and then we can come back with a proposal that would, and a timeline that would get us to where we need to go.
40 slide PowerPoint, and you'll make sure that.
I hope not. So with that said, I would like to make a motion that we create an ad hoc implementation committee for the use of public ways and golf carts, ATVs, and side-by-sides.
I'll second that.
So there's a motion by Kent, second by Chris to have a committee, an ad hoc committee to study all that he said. All those in favor?
This is,
Oh, sorry. Sorry,
It's Chris.
I know I'm not, this is Chris Bryant. I know I'm not necessarily authorized to speak, but can I speak for a moment here?
Oh, yes.
Okay, there was a comment that somebody put in the chat about the Trails Committee focusing on trails and asking the voters to deal with this as opposed to the Trails Committee. And I just wanted to clarify my opinion on that a little bit. The Trails Committee is not recommending that this happen. What the Trails Committee is doing is we're asking the selectmen to investigate this, whether this should happen or not, and then what that would mean. The Trails Committee just thought that there was enough responses from the survey to make it worth pursuing further. Not that we're recommending that we do this, that just the selectmen should consider this on your own. Another committee should be formed, public hearings should be held. This Trails Committee specifically does not want to deal with this particular situation, and that's why we're referring it to you.
So you're all set with that?
I'm all set. And by the way, just
Four voted yes. We didn't hear from Mark, are you?
for point of clarification, before we register the vote.
Okay, okay. Fair enough.
A public hearing for whatever the plan is definitely part of how we would go about implementing it. So people would get to see in writing what the map looks like, what the rules are, what the restrictions are, and that this is a small scale trial that is fairly limited, just so we can get a taste of how this might work.
Would I be able to drive my zero-turn lawnmower down?
Only if you're George Jones.
Is it a registered vehicle? That would be the question.
No.
I don't know. I don't know. You might have to discuss, that one with the police chief.
You got a farm up there, they'll believe it.
Got some SMV sign on the back.
Yeah.
One of those, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mark,
Yes.
you're set with this?
Yep, it sounds okay. I mean, we're not voting to do anything other than explore it. So I'm willing, I'm certainly willing to explore it and see what we come up with.
Somebody voted. You vote?
Yes.
We just need to.
We just didn't hear Mark saying.
Yeah, we were just
Oh,
waiting for
yes,
Mark.
I vote yes, sorry.
Sorry.
My connection's not great, so.
Yes.
And you can't change your mind.
Then now is, so you're done with select board?
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I wanted to mention, I did go to the meeting, the library committee on Monday night, and they're working on an ordinance, drafting an ordinance, make changes to the present. From my observations, I don't think they're going to be able to get it together in time to get it on the ballot. I just
the conversation was not very useful.
We're planning on having an election in November, no? There's gonna be another opportunity if. I think there's some questions that are gonna be. like,
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's
statewide.
been announced, but I think you're correct.
I'm pretty sure
I
there's
think
gonna be a statewide ballot in November.
There'll be something, I think. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And if the library were to,
Yeah.
if they don't make it for the June ballot, they could, as long as there's not a financial implication with what they're suggesting,
Correct, which is not what the.
then they could make use of that election without any, well, very minimal cost.
Right.
To put something before the voters if they wanted to.
That's true.
So there's plenty of time.
That's it. Then on to public comment.
One public comment. I I haven't heard us come back around and have a discussion, you guys, about the social media policy. Has that been shelved? Has it been, because I think.
I think it's been tabled.
I
Tabled
think-
almost indefinitely.
Well, I think that I'm seeing some things running through social media that not sure should be vetted the way they're being vetted. So that's why it came. I hadn't seen it come back on your agenda, so I'm wondering.
It's been a sore
People
point
are airing things.
with some members of the fire department
No,
primarily.
no,
No, it hasn't.
no, not the fire department has been airing things.
Can I ask you a question? Someone.
No, no.
Cause I don't even look, so.
It was more in the vicinity of where Joe was just discussing. That things were being aired, that. It's out there. So maybe Justin. Just
Throw him under the bus.
like.
Thanks a lot. I thought we had a nice conversation the other day.
By then,
I do know what she's referencing, but I'm holding my tongue just out of necessity due to,
But we need,
that's all I'm being quiet on purpose.
so the town needs to be an amazingly excellent employer, and part of that is protecting employee privacy.
That's correct.
but people are airing things, I just think,
Well, anybody can run the stock on whatever they want.
but it's.
Well, yeah, I
I
mean,
realize that, but it's on a platform that is a town platform.
For people to speak to each other.
Right, but it's,
Well, real easy to type that shit on the thing when you ain't looking at it.
Well, I think the biggest thing, and the only thing that I'll say, which I've said multiple times, is we have to think about what's right for protecting 4,000 some odd people in this town from litigation costs. If we don't have a social media policy that protects us, then we're always at risk of that. And every time Doug posts something and Kent posts something, I never post anything, but every time that happens, because we don't have a social media policy, it leaves us open to litigation because we are not protected because there's no social media policy. And that's all I have to say about that.
And that's a concern as a taxpayer, that things can come back on this town very, very easy. Could have last summer, they can now.
They could, they can, and we can look into it, the particular circumstances that you want us to look at. We can definitely look into it, and things can always change. Let me also say, though, that Chief Roy is here in the meeting. Part of the way that we recruit and retain excellent volunteers with our fire department, which could cost us
That I just
twice as
think-
much more,
don't have
is
a problem
through
with that.
social media.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yep.
I just think that you're leaving yourself open on the front of employee-employer relations if you don't do.
We'll take a look at it.
Scratch that scab, didn't
With a screwdriver.
Public.
just me.
Oh,
Wait, I see another member of the public here.
yes,
I think Jeff's was missing from a meeting a few weeks back, whatever it might have been. I asked about the possibility of looking into the speed limit
Oh,
issue. And
Oh, yes.
yes.
Yes, so those questions were sent to Pete Coughlin, and I can follow up. Who's the director of the local road center? He's kind of like the guy. I don't know what engineer is our district person, maybe Tony knows, but
It just changed.
yeah, so I usually say, and I saw it get forwarded off to somebody, but I haven't heard back. So let me follow up with that, Hugh. I'm sorry.
no worries. Thank you.
Yeah.
That is we don't have jurisdiction.
Right, we don't. They have to decide. Yeah.
I think the next thing is review the fiscal year 2026 budget and capital improvement plan.
Right, so, you let me know how you kind of like to work through this. The operating budget has kind of been gone through in chunks, right, which is kind of your normal process. Nothing significant has changed in those except, I have, updated the salary lines, but I can't, we don't have a signed agreement yet, right? So you haven't accepted the union contract in its final form, right? So I've tried to update that number in there so that you can kind of see it, but I can't really. You folks all know, but I can't say it in public, right? Because it hasn't been finalized yet, so it's still subject to union negotiations. But other than that, if you want me to go back through those pages, which I've tried to print out, and there's some up here if anybody in the audience wants to have a copy of this extras. If you want to go through certain departments or anything like that, I'm happy to, but I think most of your discussion is going to get fleshed out talking through the capital improvement plan, and then we're going to kind of, if the chair will entertain it, we're going to have to kind of loop in our discussion on this truck and what you want to do, because it's going to have an impact. So a couple of these items are all kind of mushed together. So if you're all, yeah, and how you want to proceed with that will impact what we're going to recommend on the capital improvement plan. So I'm not sure where you would like to.
Should we start with the truck?
If you want to, yeah, that might be a good place to go, because it's kind of, it'll kind of lead our discussion with everything else, if that's okay with you.
Sorry.
So, a concerned citizen stopped by my garage one day. Gave me a heads up of a plow truck coming out to bid by a town, about 40 minutes east of Lincoln. 3-year-old truck, dump truck. I talked to Justin about it to see if it's worth us going to look at, which we ended up doing. Went up and looked at the truck. The town has 9 miles of road to plow. They had one guy, one truck. The guy's 72 years old now. He's done plowing snow, and I gave him kudos for lasting to 72 because it's not really that easy. We looked the truck over, it has 6,700 miles on it. Best way to describe the tires is, you know how you have the little nubbies on them when you get brand new tires? Well, they're still on this truck. Holy moly. So we tried it out. We got all the specs on it. Very nice truck. So I came back, talked to Justin about that, and then we talked about should we bid on this. He talked to several of you, if not all of you. We decided to put in a bid contingent on the town authorizing the money. I didn't want to go through the hoops of authorizing the money and then not win the bid. So I won't put the cart out in front of the horse. They totally understood because they had to go to special town meeting to sell the truck, which they had done. So long story short, we have the high bid. Of $135,000. So to buy that truck today is right around $248,000. Now I know it's 3 years old. The last time I bought a single axle plow truck, which is all the ones that we have, I was right around $159,000. So it's been a little while since I bought one, apparently. The cost of steel and all the goods. The definite impact of the cost of new equipment is COVID driven because nobody could get manufacturing stopped all over. But long story short, trucks have gone up about 60%. When I was getting the quote for the truck for a new one, just for a budget number to see what we could do on our CIP. He asked, well, when are you looking? I said, well, our town meetings in June. So he goes, add 10% more because that's what the industry's telling the salespeople. That's what's good. So, if I was going to put in a number on a truck, 2 voters, it'd be $250,000. So, do you want me to go into our equipment now? Do that CIP. So we have old equipment. I have.
Oh, you're looking at me? I didn't know if you were looking at Doug to see where he wanted to be. Okay, sorry.
We have a 2006, so that's 19 years old. We have a 2013, 2010, which is 15 years old, and a 2013, which is 11 years old. The benchmark is somewhere between 10 and 12 years before you want to replace them. The way it was set up, and no idea what happened. Obviously COVID struck and there was a lot of stuff you couldn't buy stuff. But it was set up so that every 3 years a new truck would be bought, and so you're on a 15-year cycle. So we're way out of that now. We're headed into 20-year-old truck plowing snow. We do not have a backup. We have no. If a truck goes down, our operations suffer. We're hamstrung. So as far back as I could dig on what expenses we have put into our three oldest trucks were the 2006 truck. In 3 years, we spent $27,620. No, excuse me, wrong number, 16,334. The 2010, 21,400, and the 2013 is 27,600. So we just had to put all new injectors in that one. We had 2 go bad, there's 6 in an engine. It's quite a process to change them. It makes absolutely no sense to only change 2 and not all 6, so we made that option because I didn't want to have to come here and tell you we just spent 15,000 and 2 more injectors have gone. That's not a good way to operate. So we put up quite a bit of money into 3 trucks that are old. So I think 135,000 is a very good opportunity for us to replace one of our dump trucks.
And the lead time on getting a truck, even if one was
Well,
approved as new,
yeah,
the
you're
lead time
here.
is what, 12 to 18 months, correct?
Well,
And this truck is operational, ready to drive down the road
correct.
Sitting in a garage.
in a heated garage.
In a garage, yeah.
I could put it on.
Yeah. He knows where it is.
I know the guy that drove it.
Very nice people. Tony.
How old was this?
It's 3 years old,
3 years.
It's a 2021.
21.
What's the mileage life of a truck?
Depends on what the truck's used for.
So our trucks are not high mileage. Our trucks are
I used.
high usage.
They're beat up by the.
So, you know, for the last month, those trucks have worked very hard, you know, and they're out there in the worst of conditions. You know how people say, oh, calcium's bad, salt's bad for your vehicle, and they go wash it all the time. Well, ours are bathing in it for weeks at a time. I think the oldest truck, we're up around 97,000. If you were gonna drive these trucks over the road, you know, they're good for 300,000 miles. That's because of the engine and you run it. Ours are length of service. I mean,
Because they're exposed to.
correct.
You can think about it almost in the same way as you do like police cruisers.
They're grinding.
You're right, they're always running and they don't,
Always run.
yeah.
So to explain this totally, I want to move back into the CIP, so you guys all got this little sheet.
Yeah, you got this with all my yellow on it. If you have,
So,
as we move, if it gets confusing, just let me know.
says Chevy 5500 HD plow trucks, okay? So what they do is you got your little 1 tons, then you have your big dump truck. They used to make a mid-range truck. They went away from it. Now they're back. They're 4-wheel drive. So under the CIP plan that I come up with before we had an opportunity to bid on this truck, I put in for 2 of those trucks to replace 2 of ours, so that over a 5-year span, we don't have, then we're not gonna come back for another truck, but we've got 2 that have replaced. And the reason we can go mid-size, smaller is we have 2 plow routes, which are close to our shed. So the North Monmouth route, and then I call it the in-town Academy, Main Street, you know, all that area is a plow route. So that's close enough so a smaller truck can do the job. I can't send a small truck to South Monmouth. It's, you know.
You run out of material before
Well,
you got
yeah,
there,
you don't even
you know,
get
and you
there.
have to
You're
turn
on
around.
material, And you have to come back, load up, go back down, and that's you know, that's a 10-minute ride in a car. And when a plow truck going 15 miles an hour, it's a lot different. So when you look at the CIP sheets, we put in on the 2026, when we were looking at the two trucks, was $8,000 for this year. Because when you bond it, you only have to pay the interest. So the impact wouldn't come till the next budget. Now, if you go up to the top where it says current leases, we have a plow truck. Our latest purchase was in 2022. That one's coming off. So this is the last year, we're paying 56,000, that one. And our excavator of 24,000 a year is coming off. So in that piece, you know, you combined your $75,000 is coming off of the CIP, and we're looking to put back on just 8,000 this year and then 68,000 next year. Now, if we proceed with the truck that we bid on, if you have a special town meeting, it passes, we purchase that truck, now we pull one of those back. So that goes down to one, so that is, those numbers, either we shorten the life of the bond, or we make it a lot smaller, so there's options, we have wiggle.
The truck you're looking at is the large variety
Yes,
that you could use on the South Monmouth routes.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, South Monmouth, East Monmouth, those are big loops.
Yeah.
I don't know, I know that's kind of convoluted, and I put a lot of stuff in the salad bowl right there.
So my 2 cents on this is that I'm all for, you know, pursuing the truck we put the bid in on and keeping one of the trucks on the CIP, because we've kicked this can down the road for a really long time, and it's gotten to the point that it's gonna bite us in the butt at some point. You know, we've been fortunate that they haven't been broken down during a storm, and we've been hamstrung with that. But I think more than likely that time will come when one of these breaks down during a storm. Not that I want to jinx Tony, but I mean, so I think we need to, we want our roads plowed, we want them taken care of, and so my 2 cents is to pursue the truck we put the bid in on, and then one of the 550s. So, because essentially, if we did that, this would end up being 4,000, and then what? You know, 34, correct?
It could be like that, yep.
If we did
Or we
it that
do,
way.
or we could do a 3-year lease purchase on, you know, so there's a lot, that's like. that's
Either
what-
way,
Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
different ways to finance it, depending on what everybody's comfort level is, and I think that
yes.
if you're able to.
Do you understand why I left 2 in here? Because if the vote fails and we don't get that truck, I still need.
Exactly, we still need 2
Yeah.
trucks anyway, so,
Right, that's why it's kind of laid out like that.
yes.
So there's a lot of like kind of moving parts that we just need some kind of direction. I guess the real question is whether you wanna. I guess maybe the first question is, do you wanna hold this special town meeting to buy this truck? Because that's what we would have to do. See the results of that, and then it's going to come back and you'll have an impact, that'll have an impact on what, you know, your final choices are, because if that fails or you don't want to do that, then the plan changes a little bit.
I mean, we truly lucked into this.
Yeah,
Because the thing's out in the boondocks.
exactly.
So Andy likes the boondocks apparently.
Well, there's several people from Monmouth that are familiar with that neck of the woods, so, I think that it was fortuitous, and I think that,
They paid, I think it was 170 or 185.
169, they showed me the
Invoice, yeah, they did,
invoice,
just
169,000.
Yeah,
170,000 miles,
Yeah.
dollars, and they've only got 7,000 miles on it.
so,
And the other thing that came into play on that truck is the state was mandating they wouldn't sell them sand no more. That town didn't have its own sand salt shed, didn't have its own sand pot, didn't have a loader, didn't have any of that. So the only way they could do that is through the town to have a loader bought, sand put up, salt put up
It'd be expensive.
for, 3 or 4 loads of sand that they used a year.
yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't.
So, you know, it's
What you'd-
one hopper of sand lasted 3
three
snowstorms.
storms, yeah,
So, you know,
so,
Yeah,
the
so,
truck's always been kept inside, a heated garage, 24/7, its whole life. Never even been packed outdoors in the elements. It goes out, it plows the roads, it goes back into a heated garage. And it's only had that one guy, well, I had one other guy that helped him once, because he was having health problems, but 72 years old, that never drove that truck.
So I feel we should do it. as
yeah,
Chris
I-
does.
yeah,
And it's fully equipped,
Yeah.
it's,
ready to go.
it ain't one of these, well, you gotta add this, you gotta add that, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. This truck is just, you turn the key, you can start plowing right here.
True. All you need is a radio.
Hey, okay. I can give him a handout to get by the first storm. Actually, I'm 95% sure it has a radio in it, and that's just getting the channels changed to what we use. So that's,
And if you buy the 2 little trucks, that's gonna put one of your older trucks out on one of your bigger loops. You know, that's another thing you ought to consider, those 2 big loops, there's a lot of roads
Yeah.
covered. You ain't gonna cover, you know, you're gonna have the older trucks in the fleet out on the worst and longest roads.
Well, it seems to me like it's 60 cents on the dollar.
Yeah,
yeah.
And Andy, thank you for bringing this to our attention. It's great that you can
Well, when I
share
found out
that.
they're selling it, that's the first thing that come to mind.
Yeah.
I said, the town of Monmouth needs a damn truck.
Yeah,
I come right now, and these 2 guys are in an office meeting, and I
Yeah.
just walked right in. I'm very reserved.
also not very true.
but he did call me first, so.
But, no, I think it's just, if a town can save $140,000,
Yeah.
why the hell not?
Yeah.
You need,
Well, that essentially pays for the savings,
we'll pay for the.
so it
other
doesn't,
truck.
it doesn't
Right.
pay for it
Literally.
dollar wise,
Yeah.
it's,
Oh,
but
yes,
literally
yes,
the cost savings.
yeah,
You get a bigger truck and
and another one, which we need too.
another
Yeah.
one. We are strapped on one truck.
yeah,
Another thing, you'll notice on our sheet, I moved the loader out quite a ways. We put a significant amount of money into that. Let's see.
That's like the third.
29 now. So I moved that out so that you guys made a commitment, to put serious money into that just last year.
Right.
We spent 30,000 to repair the loader.
Right.
I can't get that back on a trade.
Yeah.
I get a chunk of it back, but not all of it. The loader is, although well used and has some time on it, it's still
Like,
got life enough to get us by. I mean, we would do, I can go back, I'm pretty sure it was this year was when the loader was due. So to help move things along plow truck wise, I'm sliding the loader back 3 years so that, to help fund this, because believe me, I'm a taxpayer, not in this municipality, but, so I know what it's like. I own property, so I know what property taxes are like and how it hurts. Also gotta have the services that we choose.
yeah, he's talking about removing this, this group used to be here and he just moved it to here.
So I can go through the rest of these things. I see that you folks have signed this, but if I can, Doug, can I get you to request a motion that?
So I'll make a motion that we hold a special town meeting on Thursday, March 13th, 2025 at 6 p.m. to consider purchasing the plow truck that we have just discussed.
Second. So the motion by Chris, second by Kent, to do the special town meeting to purchase the truck. I won't say it. All those in favor?
Yes.
Mark, thank you.
Andy.
What time is that on the 13th?
6 o'clock. And
That would be here.
no,
At
we'll
Compton
at
Hall.
Compton Hall,
Do it in
just
the
like the
theater.
old days.
Yeah. Dennis
Bring
already
your
knows
toys
about
to
it, so
play on
he's.
the floor.
And we just need to post a notice and
Yep.
do a Facebook or a website thing.
For a special in-person town meeting, it's a 7-day notice, so this will get posted tomorrow. This will be given to Chief Ferland to actual, technically he posts it. And then we'll put it out everywhere. Dennis is ready to make this as public as possible so that people know, because it's a little, it's a departure from the normal process.
So in the old days, we sat up on stage, the select board sat on stage, so we have to, those same things, those same rules apply.
You don't have to do anything. You can do it however you want. I mean, obviously, this right here, it's one question, right?
Yeah.
So it shouldn't take a long time unless there's unless there's some very serious debate going on. So however formal you want to make it, just let me know and we'll set it up, because I know we haven't done this in a while, so I have no concept of what you.
And people have
what
to
you
come
want
in
to
and
look like.
register, just like they do to vote, and they either, get a card or whatever.
That's correct.
And that's how it works.
That's correct.
So. Just like the old days.
I've heard some flack.
Well, we did it at the end at the school, but I mean, my point of reference is my
Way back.
grandmother and Bob Smith sitting up on the stage and me at the floor at Compton Hall playing with toys. Well, my parents sat there all day going through 35 warrant articles, those were the good old days.
The good old days.
But this is one, I said, well, it's 3 because it's just the formalities of it, but I think that, this is town government at its best.
Yeah.
So just so everybody that's kind of reading, I just want to make sure that people understand. So there's 3 questions, but
Yes.
it's one. There's 2. One, the first question on any town meeting warrant is to create a moderator, because somebody has to run the meeting. So that's done like within the first second that you're there. And then the second article on here is to open the floor of the town meeting to non-registered people, which would probably be Tony and I for this particular question. We'd be we're not residents of the town, so we have no authorization. We can't speak unless we're given the permission from the floor. And then the third question is the actual question.
Who's going to moderate?
I don't know. Do you have any suggestions?
Were you?
Clifford and all.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I could do it.
Well, we kind of talked about that. We weren't sure that you could do it being a select board.
Yeah, I'm
member,
not
but-
sure you can.
But
What about Joe?
Steve.
What about Joe O'Donnell?
What about
Steve.
Steve?
I'm sorry, Steve O'Donnell. The other Joe.
Anybody can,
Otherwise-
they don't even have to really be a resident. So if you know anybody that you think can
Well, I can ask you.
handle that, I mean, it shouldn't take long, and I don't imagine it being,
I think it would be appropriate if we had someone from the legal profession.
Yeah.
Like Cliff Goodall.
Yeah, Cliff used to run.
Does he still do it?
Cliff is retired.
Does that mean you'll still do it?
So let's talk.
He'll do it for money.
Let's ask,
You want a freebie?
let's ask Steve. Let's ask
I
Steve.
can ask you, it might be his golf night.
Well, it's gonna be hard to play golf.
Well, they play inside. They go.
Oh. It's gonna need some orange balls if you're playing outside.
golf night and I'll. Well, do you go to?
Well,
Different one.
thank you,
I'll
thank you,
sacrifice.
thank you all
Yes.
for putting this together.
Yeah.
If we, I mean, that's really good teamwork. If
Yeah.
we can grab this while the iron is hot.
Yeah.
You want me to meet?
Is there more to discuss on this? CIP?
Yeah, if you want me to, so the top, part under the blue is the stuff we already
Yeah.
have. So that's, you can look at it and sort of with 26, you can kind of see what Tony was talking about, the mini excavators dropped off, and that's the gray part. That's when those things come off. The reserve funds are just that. They're the ones that have been created by the voters. Those are proposals, so you can certainly change those. I don't know if Dan is still on here. But I know, he would prefer that, the fire equipment reserve line is restored to what it was last year, which was 30,000. I cut it, down just as a budget saving mechanism, but if he's on or wants to speak to that, I welcome him to, do so.
He's there.
Are you on, Dan?
Yep, yeah,
Okay.
I'd be happy to. Thanks for
Sure.
mentioning that. So last year, I talked to Justin about this previously. You know, it was approved to have 30,000 put in that account. And, you know, just totally understand why, you know, he's trying to, you know, find some cuts, because we do have a lot of debt services, and, you know, don't want to see, you know, an increase in taxes to try to maintain those levels. But, you know, for example, you know, I'm taking 14,000 currently out of that 30,000 from last year to pay for, you know, the repeater equipment for the radio equipment. And we have much more equipment that's going to need replacing. We have a lot of aging equipment, aging stations, aging apparatus, and I really feel that 30,000 is a small drop in the bucket for future purchases, because equipment's just getting more and more costly. Any of the other department heads can attest to that, I'm sure. So I think cutting that down to 5,000 is, you know, it's just taking a chunk out what I was hoping to try to build up a fund to have for future, you know, large equipment purchases that we may have in the future. So yeah, I'd like to try to get that not decrease, but certainly if we got to do some type of cut, maybe not as drastic, maybe meet us halfway or something, would be my recommendation. But I'll leave that up to you guys. Ultimately, you have the final decision on that. But thank you, Justin, for letting me talk.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dan. So that's one item in there. If you guys want to talk on one at a time, that's fine too. I don't want to impede your discussion or look at it. I can keep moving through and discuss it at the
What
end.
do you think?
Why don't we look at them all, and then we can come back around, just so we can get a sense of,
Sure.
you know, what the give and take is.
So the police equipment reserve is sort of the same number. That's the 5,000. This will be the last year of those, of the taser replacements that are in there. So that 5,000 for this year really isn't going into a reserve. It's going to be spent as soon as it gets put in. But I'm just trying to hold that sort of idea that we're, you know, when that's gone, that there will be some money being put aside. The road maintenance reserve, it's held at 250. I mean, there's never enough money to do the roads, as Tony will tell you. That I just kind of held at that number. And then the tax reval reserve is really just under the idea that every decade or so, we're gonna have to come up with this 200,000 or whatever to do it. So I just thought, since we're kind of in the routine of putting money in there over the last couple of years, that we'd kind of keep that going. Even at that level, that's not going to be enough at the end, but at least there'll be something there to offset the amount that you'd have to ask, you know, the taxpayer, the big chunk at the end, I guess.
And I think having these reserve accounts is imperative because, you know, one of the discussions that Tony and I had about this plow truck is how a little town like Lakeville managed to buy this truck in the first place, was because the minute they bought a truck, they started putting money away for the next truck. And, you know, that's how I was raised that you put money away, so it was there for you when you needed it, and that's something that I think is prudent as managers of the town financial prospects, is to know that we're putting money aside for these things, because we're always gonna need them. We're always gonna, if we have a fire department, we're gonna need fire trucks. If we have a police department, we need police cars. If we plow the roads, we need trucks. So having these reserve accounts, I think, is imperative, and making sure that we, you know, put that money aside for them is really important.
So then as you move down to the green section, the sand salt shed, Tony and I kind of had a discussion, you all had a discussion after it didn't pass last year that, I think Tony thinks that there's a possibility that we could have a smaller building, but we have some sort of other ideas too, because we do know that another nearby municipality needs one as well. So maybe there's some discussions to have about how to move forward. So I just put that as a hold, as you can see, like, let's just not do anything with that in this upcoming budget. I did talk to Dan about, and the police chief about this fire station building reserve, which also failed at the last town meeting, to sort of hold that off at least a year and let the individuals create a committee, or come before you at some point and create the committee first. Let them do some sort of free analysis before we try to go out and hire an architect and have them develop a proposal for the voters to think about. So that was kind of another one of those items that we've kind of slid to the 27 year, to let there be a kind of a committee to look through that first. The Cumston Hall Maintenance Reserve also didn't pass last year. My suggestion is to use a chunk of the set aside from the ARPA money for the HVAC project to create that, so it won't necessarily have, it won't have an impact on the taxes. And then that way Dennis will have at least a starting place for his own reserve fund, and then we can slowly put a little money in there, so when he needs to have something painted or whatever it is, that there's actually money there. I mean, we all know that building is never gonna, it needs to be taken care of if we're gonna keep it. The police SUV, that's to replace, that's not the one that was totaled. That's the one that was not approved last year. It has 100 and, I think the chief said it's 150,000-60,000 miles on it. It's well beyond its useful life. So that's in this plan. And then we talked about the dump trucks. We think we have a plan. Well, we have a plan for that now, so we can kind of gloss over that. And then
Justin, can I interrupt?
Yeah, sure, anytime.
On the police cruisers situation. So if this is the one that's not totaled, what about the one that was totaled?
Right, so the one that is totaled, I will get to that. So we got about $22,000, I think, in insurance money for it. The remainder, my plan was, if you look at the front sheet of the budget, the one that kind of guesses on the mill rate, over on the right side under the notes, it lists some items that I think should be taken from the unassigned fund balance, and that remainder amount, my suggestion was to take that from there, and I'll get to that list in just a minute. Yep, so the next one kind of down on the list has to do with that Jeep that the town has had kicking around. It used to be the code enforcement Jeep, and then Public Works started using it. The repairs necessary, don't let me speak out of turn, Tony, but my understanding is repairs necessary to get it back on the road are more than its value. So Tony hasn't fixed it. That's why you haven't seen it. It's just sitting over there at the yard. It's unusable. So there's no vehicle right now for the Public Works staff other than taking a dump truck to go pick up the trash in the summer and do the smaller task, like taking a push lawnmower or something, they're gonna have to load it into a 1 ton, basically to drive it around. So so the suggestion is that we find something we can afford. Tony's talked to some dealer. Tony knows everybody. I don't know if you know this about him, but he knows everybody.
Been around.
So he talked to some people and he thinks that he can get a decent truck for the town to use. We're not talking brand new, but we are expecting about a $50,000 check from FEMA for the storm in December of 2023. I mean, it takes a long time to get any money from them. But when that comes, that money would just fall into the unassigned fund balance. So that's again, a suggestion. That's kind of why it's starred and not in the column, because it also wouldn't hit the tax rate, but we'd be able to get a vehicle kind of using money that's kind of associated with public work. So that was our thought, was how to get another vehicle that they need to use without it hitting the tax rate this year. So that's another scheme that we're kind of using. And then if we go to that front page here, you'll see, so the proposed amount that would effectively come out of the unassigned fund balance would be $95,000, and that would pay the normal amount for the senior property tax assistant program. It would be the Compton Hall Reserve Fund, because that ARPA money technically is sitting there. It doesn't need to be appropriated, so that's why I'm including it on that line. The FEMA and MEMA money from the December storm of $50,000, and then the cruiser replacement, which would be another $20,000 out of there for a total of $95,000.
Which line, what page and which line are we on?
Sorry.
Each one.
Yep, front page, over, right where the yellow, right below the yellow. Yeah. Right there. So that's kind of those are kind of the items that, and if the truck passes, at the special town meeting, and then we can add that other truck, it really holds. Don't get too excited about that. Property tax levy only being 1.7%. That's the town's part. So I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to hold the line.
Dial back.
The numbers assumed in here are that the county and the school won't change. So whatever they do will be anything above that.
We know that.
Which, as we all know, is 75% of the tax bill is the county and the school. So
You made some scary statements about the ambulance and
the ambulance and the dispatch.
And the dispatch.
That is built in here already. Yep.
Into the one.
Yep, those are substantial increases, but Winthrop has agreed to phase those over 3 years. So next year, we see a very small amount, and then it'll slowly get bigger. So it's one of those things that's kind of like, well, it's all right this year, but it's gonna be a bigger problem moving
Right.
forward. But there's also very little that we can do about it. I mean, I'm trying to make it easier for us to get accustomed to the new rate. So
as well as all the other towns that are. affected.
all of them are being impacted by it. Yeah. We're their second. We're the second biggest. So we're obviously, yeah. Just get real quiet. Man. Something turned off, didn't it? But I just stopped talking.
No, I think the heat pump shut off.
Oh, okay.
So,
So I don't know where you want to go with that, if there's questions about some of those ideas or items that are on there, so obviously, those are all choices for you to make, but that's kind of our recommendation.
The compactor would wait another year.
Yeah, I think-
Tony?
So, I guess to
That's it.
say something, we're working on a couple of plans, and, we're managing right now with what we have, and I think that we can get to another year. price on those is pretty scary. Problem is you need so many just to function.
Is it 2026 yet?
We fill 2 rubbish ones a week.
And then I took I guess the last change on here, if anybody was trying to compare it, is the Main Street sidewalk amount, but that's tip money. That's the very bottom of the big sheet. I just keep pushing that to the right because DOT hasn't initiated that
Yeah.
project.
So we haven't heard.
So,
from them.
right, so there's no expenses. To,
That's supposed to go to bid. Construction bid in November,
okay, so yeah, so
as is Wagon Bridge.
Yeah.
Really? So it's gonna be a
What's
while.
happening this summer.
No,
Right,
nothing's, no,
They
yeah,
claim it's in 25, well,
but it isn't.
they're putting, well,
But that's the bid.
the bid
yeah.
is in 25.
But they're not gonna work down on the flats or Wagon until next year.
Yeah, the flats, I'm not sure about. I think that's also gonna be 26. Yeah, it is, because I thought.
think it's
They're
tied to
both
the
Looking
projects
at
are on
Wagon
there.
and that one,
Yes.
they're gonna have to.
I think they're gonna tie it
the
together.
Platform's not a long. It's a serious disruption to traffic,
Yeah,
but it's not gonna take them a long.
no,
time to
it's not
do it,
gonna take
as
a long,
opposed to
the Wagon
build the
is
bridge
much bigger.
is.
right.
Tony, have you seen the engineering on the Wagon? Have you seen their design?
No.
If they're,
I
if
haven't
they're
seen it.
contemplating bidding, then they must have got some sort of.
They're supposed to hold another.
Here to November.
Well,
Right.
Right, they're not gonna do it till.
They're supposed to hold another public, so with the state, it's really weird, so they have allocations in the budget per month or quarter. So even if they're ready to do something, if they've already spent their allocation for that project for that quarter, they stop all work on it and they walk away. The engineers do, they stop, they walk away, and then 6 weeks later, their allocation comes back and then someone says, okay, you can start working on that project again, because we have money to,
Yeah.
to pay the project.
They have budgeted 2.5 million for it.
No, in their worksheet, you know.
Right, whatever that means. I mean, it's.
Yeah, once they have a design, then they do a expected cost
Right.
based on current construction costs.
That's
Which
all.
they base off of all the other bids they get in front of that, so.
And it's all prefab concrete, so it's.
I know that
it's
the
gonna be-
Five Bridges bridge that they put in was $1 million. I thought that was, wow.
And that was a long time ago now.
Yeah, that was way back. That was back in the olden days,
Yeah.
back when you were my spelling teacher.
Probably spending that a week,
Well,
yeah, down
no,
the
it
one
was-
on Western Avenue.
I'm just yanking.
It was before that, it was after that.
Yeah.
$1 million bridge.
I know the person that was doing the inspections on it. And the scuba
Is there something we can
divers.
do to find out more information on where they're at with the Wagon Bridge?
I
Like,
just literally looked at it
Yeah,
this week.
it's,
I mean, like talking to somebody to say, what is the plan and when is your public hearing and anything like
well,
that?
it's DOT, I mean, it's such a question.
Look at a broken sign down there now.
Listen, as soon as they say that there's gonna be a public hearing, there's gonna be, I guarantee you, like 30 people who are gonna wanna go to that public hearing from Annabeth Lake.
But if you've signed up to get notifications already, you're gonna get a notification, you're gonna know, because.
I don't know. I mean, I signed up like 2.5
Well,
years
yeah,
ago.
But
when
I
first
get
put
all
it
the
on.
ones.
They do
for-
a pretty good job of
Yes,
reaching
they
out
do.
to people. They put it all over the place,
Yeah,
like.
and if your email's in there, you're getting an email about it, because anytime anything happens with,
You have a lot of
Bailey
confidence.
Flats, I get an email on it, and I also get something in the mail because
We
I'm
can
a
certainly
property
reach out. I
owner.
mean, it's no
I'm the
big deal.
property owner, so, I get something in the mail. So if you've signed up for emails, not only, you will get an email, because if there's one thing that the state does is that they send out emails nonstop, so.
Are we all set with the budget?
So let me work from the end backwards to our capital improvement plan. Justin, what I'm seeing when you package all this together, that, assuming there's no change in the county and the RSU two bill, which is,
You know, there's gonna be something.
there's gonna be, I think the superintendent was saying there might be a 5% increase. Because they've got collective bargaining agreements that are being renegotiated. He couldn't quite say because
Right, yeah.
things are still a little bit in flux, but, they're still getting caught up on the inflationary period when, the increases were lower than inflation and now they're, sort of rebounding. But assuming that there is none, then what I'm seeing is your fiscal 2025 total budget for funding requirements is $12,244,000. And for 2026, the funding requirement is $12,809,000. So basically expenses on the expense side of the equation, but for the whole nut, we have an increase of 4.6%.
That's correct. That's the way that, yeah.
On the funding assumptions. We have, let's see, total funding sources. On the funding assumptions, we have a certain amount coming from excise taxes, licensing, these are all the miscellaneous things, right?
Yep.
Other revenues, I'm assuming that's like revenue sharing or, revenue sharing would be intergovernmental.
Yeah, that's in
right?
that number there, that big one, yeah.
Right.
1 point.
And we're assuming a 10% increase in intergovernmental, where did that 10% increase come from?
The treasurer has already released the expected revenue sharing estimate, so a good chunk of that is that. It's gone up
Okay,
for next year. It went down last year and it's kind of back where it was.
okay. So, and the treasurer has, at this point, it'd be hard for them to take it back if they.
Right, and I don't.
This is already budgeted for this. No, it's not. They're gonna pass a budget in June.
They don't budget for revenue sharing. It comes out of, it's a piece of their revenue side. So it can change. And it often changes. I don't ever
So a
budget the
10%
full
increase-
100% because I don't trust they're always gonna get to that number.
Okay, so a 10% increase basically is a reflection of the strong revenue growth that they've had at the state level.
Some of it is in there, but it is broken down more. If you go to page 2.
Yeah.
You can see all of those categories. So like revenue sharing is estimated to be up about 16%.
Gotcha.
And some of these numbers in here that are orange are not really revenue, like Betty and Homestead is built into the tax rate calculator, so it's not
Yep.
really revenue to the town.
Yep.
I have no idea what the number is gonna be from LRAP or whatever they call it now. So that's last year's number.
Yep.
So those are the totals in
Well, the
there.
big driver is revenue sharing in that
Yes, always
category.
is, yep.
And as a share, it's up 16%, so it jumps from 641 to 750,000.
Right, and I think the estimate is probably closer to 785, and I usually pare it down.
Pared it back a little bit.
So if you're more comfortable with going with the real estimate, we can put it up there. I just always kind of play it a little more conservatively.
Well, that's fine, and we know that the expense side is gonna be higher than it actually is. The
Yes.
funding requirements are gonna be higher than actually.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah. Okay, so just for everybody's information, what we are looking at in our present model, having gone through every department, having looked under every stone, is our current estimate is a 1.7% increase in the property tax levy. That is probably low. Probably gonna be more than that, because we still need to find out precisely what the RSU is gonna do and what the county's gonna do. I haven't heard too much from the county of you in terms of what their expected increases are.
I think the county administrator's initial request to the budget committee was something like 10%,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure whether that's gonna fly again this year because it was like 30% last year.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So I'm not sure how far they can keep doing this, but I don't know.
Talk to your friend Joe.
Yes. Yeah, there was a program where they had a doctor on board. And I don't think.
Cutting that,
Yeah, it was very useful.
Very.
But,
But expensive.
yeah.
So we're starting off on the low side, 1.7%. It's probably gonna rise from there when we finally discover what it is that the RSU is gonna propose to the voters and
You
what the
guys
county's
have
gonna.
kept this very flat
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, when you think about
Yeah.
keeping things.
Well, inflation's at 4%, 3 to
Right,
4%.
that's what I'm saying. So if you look at that and you say that it's a 5% with the school and everything else. Let's say that it's 5 to 8%.
Yeah, that would be a deep breath for me, but yes.
But I'm saying, we don't know what the school's gonna throw at it. They're always they're the, 75% of the tax bill. And no matter what is voted on in terms of how the town votes on that budget, it passes because our vote doesn't technically matter. So.
In the grand scheme of things, the things that we can control being
Right.
1.7%, I think that is very, very, very reasonable. The things that we
Yeah.
can control.
Wow.
We can't control the county and we can't control the school.
No.
Right.
And those chips just fall where they may. And I will say again, I want the RSU to put a number, not just a yes and no on the ballot. It needs to have a number. But 1.7, I don't think that for the things that we can control, I think that's pretty darn good, so.
We're, as staff, we're pretty comfortable with this in the fact that we are moving, albeit slowly, but we're moving in the right direction to getting us sort of back on track, especially if we can get Tony some equipment and get these 2 cruisers replaced. If these things happen, this puts us in a better position to move forward.
Because like I said before, the can's been kicked down the road so many times that
No can.
there's no can left to kick. And, with equipment and stuff, we're running pretty short of time. So we need to somehow get back on track.
So can we back up to the capital improvement proposals then and take a look at the fiscal year 2026 column? I mean, we also need to keep in mind, folks, that this year's gonna be a reassessment year. So there's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna come to us and say, I mean, this is the reality of property taxes. It's like it's a capital gains tax before you get to capture the capital gain. So there are gonna be some folks whose properties the good news is their properties have gone up because the market's gone up. And then
They want an abatement.
and they're gonna tell us they want an abatement or that we've been, our assessor has been unfair in some way or other, or miscalculated or whatever. There's gonna be a lot of moving parts with property taxes and the way it's allocated. And just so that everyone can hear it, we keep saying it over and over again, the reassessment doesn't affect the budget. It simply affects who pays what part of the budget, right? The budget that we are looking at here is a 1.7% increase. The assessment part of it is like, how does that pie get divided up among all the property taxpayers in Monmouth in a reasonably fair way? So a very small increase would actually make the sting of any property tax changes a little easier to swallow for some people. So, I'm seeing a couple of questions here that we need to come to some sort of decision, about. And if replacing the 2013 SUV with the $50,000, from the FEMA funds makes sense. It seems to me like the crew performed, almost all of that work, to begin with. It seems like, the work's been done, letting that revenue get expended in an immediate way rather than over long term would make sense to me.
You're talking about 18,500.
I'm talking about the $50,000
for the
of
FEMA.
revenue that we would get from FEMA and
For the
MEMA.
half-ton pickup truck.
Right. For the repairs that the town crew did to various places, but most of it was on the Walking Road. When we had the big storms from earlier on in that year.
And the pain that Tony went through primarily to get the
forms.
money back.
Yes. Yeah.
Dealing with FEMA.
What's the issue for the plow dump truck 3-year lease?
That
Just
would,
two trucks?
that line would be removed by the truck that Andy found for us.
Okay, so that would be null and void if the voters approved the truck at the special town meeting on Thursday.
Yeah,
That moves up
that's
to,
just a safety, that was just put in there. We were gonna put a number on it to what a real dump truck cost. But then this opportunity came in.
Yeah.
And I got, when I got they call it a budget number for a truck and all the plow gear. I was like, what? That's when I said it was like $250 and the last one I bought was $170.
Yeah.
It's like, what happened here? I was shocked at the price, so.
Right.
That's why we went to the 250-500s. So one of those is, in the 160 range, as opposed to one truck for 260, 250, two trucks for 320 was a way better value, and it dug us out of the hole of having so many old trucks.
Well, that and also it's instant gratification, meaning this is a truck that is plug and play and ready to go today,
Correct.
essentially, right? Yeah.
What did you think about the fire equipment reserve and the police equipment reserve?
Well, I don't think we have any choice on the police equipment reserve because we got to pay the contract for the tasers.
Right, we have 1 year left, so that 5,000 is needed just to pay the
Yeah,
expenses.
that's already spoken for.
So then the fire equipment,
I hear Dan when he
That's the discussion
says,
to have, yeah.
I hear Dan when he says, can you meet me halfway? And I would say, okay.
15.
And then I would say what I said last year about the police, that I would like to have the police have the same thing the fire department does, so. And I said that last year, because the needs that the police department have are just as great for their equipment, which is a lot of stuff too, so.
I understand. We're doing a lot for the police this year. We've got a cruiser that's getting replaced and a total cruiser that we're figuring something out for.
If it passes,
If it passes. Yeah, well, this is all if it passes, right?
yes.
So, for the fire equipment reserve, I would say, halfway between the two is 17.5. That's where I would put it.
Not 15.
Not the 15, but 17.5, halfway between 5 and 30,000.
Oh, okay.
And
Isn't half of 30, 15, if you said.
Yes,
he's in the
exactly.
middle?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I'm confused by what 75 is.
More
If you said
advanced.
15.
Yes.
He said, I'll meet you in the middle at 30.
That's Rhode Island math, so just discard it.
Calculus.
So,
Advanced.
yeah.
Some
Geometric
specials.
calculus.
Halfway between 5,000 and 30,000 is 17,500.
No. He said he'd meet you guys halfway.
All
for
right,
The 30.
all
So
right.
that
You
would
got
be
me. I'll
15.
compromise at 15.
And then you might as well, you're gonna get my 17, I don't know.
And I'm gonna say, Paul, I'd like to have Paul's go to 10, so, but that's what I was saying, so.
3, that's it. You can skin that cat. Yeah.
So you want to do, for the police and 15 for the fire department?
That's what I would do, because it was my argument last year for the police department too, so.
Use some more special math.
You have anything to say, Mark?
I would agree. I mean, these reserve funds, it makes sense to save your money for the things you need to purchase, because every time we need something and we got to borrow money, I hate the thought of how much interest that the town pays every year on all these bonds because we borrow all this money. I think next year we need to get a reserve fund going for the loader, because it's going to be coming and that's going to be a huge purchase. And if we can have some money set aside for it, it's just less money we have to borrow and less interest we have to pay. So I think the 15 for the fire department is fine. They're going to spend 14 for their repeater equipment. So that's just keeping it where it's at. And I don't have any problem with putting 10 in for the police department. I mean, it's just funds that they're going to use, and we're going to have to borrow the money if we don't have it set aside.
We are going to be borrowing some money this year for, well, I mean, it's a lease agreement, but it's essentially a borrowing. What's the going rate for the town of Monmouth if we were borrowing money?
On like a cruiser, it really depends what it is that you're borrowing, but it's obviously higher than it has been.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw a number like, I think you could be safe somewhere around 5.
5 or 6.
Yeah, somewhere in there at that point, at this point.
For that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Tariffs affect what we're.
Steel.
Potentially.
It affected me last week, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Fertilizer and patch. The fertilizer went from 600 last week to 750 this week.
All right. What other questions?
We've gone over that part. I mean, obviously, you're gonna have, this is kind of the final opportunity for you guys to kind of ask questions, but then the next meeting is your public hearing on, so you get a whole other kind of crack at this if you want.
So we have one more bite at the apple if
Yeah.
anyone sleeps on it and then suddenly wakes up in the morning and says, oh my God, you didn't answer this question.
Right. Yep.
Between 5 and 30 is 17.5.
We're at a time that you're both right.
Jesus. I say that.
We can edit that.
Okay.
I'm good with the
And
15.
Justin, do you have what you need from us?
I think so.
What are you saying, Dan? Dan, what are you saying?
I said I'm very happy with the 15,000. Thank you.
I think I have everything for now, but if any of you have any questions for me, please let me know. Tony, you're good?
I think obviously any question.
I think with that, we can let Tony go unless you guys don't need him for anything else.
Well, I think they must have saved some money on change this year. If they took the training wheels off the trucks.
So just a quick side story. There was an issue with the trucks using chains all the time. Don't know where it came from, really don't care. But I came in and talked to our drivers and explained to them that they're still gonna be safe and even our most ardent chain guy has not used chains, only once this whole winter, which it's a huge savings of money. We're spending a lot of money on chain.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm talking the tire chains.
Yeah.
That's hard
I
on
mean,
tires, hard on
It's hard
trucks.
on everything.
Part on the road.
Hard on the asphalt, right?
Yeah, but, not that they don't have their place. You just don't need them
24/7.
24-hour storm drive around with them things on.
Yes.
When they're standing on flush, they don't need to be running chains.
And they've vastly improved, I give them credit.
Thank you, Tony, for being here for us. We are, or I should say, I can't say we, I am happy to have you. You are great to work with, and I've enjoyed every second of it. But it's true. It's just been it's been.
For somebody that was away for 5 years and sees the roads now, and that's, I mean, I've been seeing the snow on all the storms that you had to do this year, and the windstorm and the ice. I mean, it blows my mind that the road is clear. It just blows my mind.
But you can at least get half the people. happy.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of them ain't happy with.
That's a win, because I've had it go the other way.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next Thursday night.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'll be there. I'd be missing golf.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Can we go down to consider responses for the bank?
I guess Tony's gonna like it leave now.
Yeah.
I'll put my 3 cents worth in.
Thank you,
Andy.
Andy.
Yeah, thank you
Bye,
for
Andy.
Yep.
for making that connection.
So we received four bids in response to our banking RFP. I predominantly did it to make sure that we were getting the best rates on the cash that we're holding, because at any given time, right, when taxes come in, town is sitting on about $3 to $4 million, and then we slowly, that all goes out right through the bills and paying the schools and the county, all that stuff. So I wanted to make sure that we were getting the best value for our money. And we also have, Monmouth has had a split kind of arrangement on its banking. It does all of its AP and that stuff through Bangor Savings Bank, and they hold our cash, but we have gotten in the habit of borrowing all our money from Androscoggin Savings Bank. I don't think there's no complaints from an operational thing with Bangor Savings Bank. Their rates are typically lower than the other banks that have bid. I got four, so we got one from Bangor Savings Bank, we got one from Androscoggin, which I expected. We got one from Bar Harbor Bank and Trust. And we got one from Machias Savings Bank. Androscoggin Bank is the largest municipal servicer in Maine by quite a lot, but Machias has about 100 municipal and quasi-municipal clients too. So all of these except Bar Harbor Bank and Trust are mutuals, which means that they don't pay interest to shareholders. I'm not saying it's always a bad thing, but with smaller mutual banks, they don't tend to get purchased because they're not valuable from a purchase standpoint. You know, a Bank of America will never buy them because they add no shareholder value. So they tend to be very stable. They tend to just kind of stay where they are. Sometimes they'll take over another small bank next to them, but they don't buy and sell regularly. I have a previous relationship with Machias Savings Bank. We interviewed these, Jessica, Lori, and I interviewed all candidates from all of them. And I think the overall Machias would be a little less expensive. They're offering to provide all their services with no fees and no minimum, what's the term they use? It's called something. Compensating balance is what they call it. I call it like earnest money. Most of the banks, they want to be able to sit on like 500,000 that you can't really use, and they generate their fees out of that. So Machias Savings Bank doesn't require that. Androscoggin Bank does. But we have a very good relationship with, John Simcoe at Androscoggin Savings Bank. And, so in the end, I would say Androscoggin Savings Bank would probably be easiest for us because we already have a very good relationship. They hold a lot of our debt. They provide all of the money for our municipal leases. More than likely, if those cruisers are approved, they will be financed through Androscoggin Savings Bank. But Machias is cheaper, probably to the tune of probably $2,000-$4,000 a year is what bank fees generate on accounts that are our size. So I guess I put that to you.
Is there a difference in terms of the transition away for like how much work that's going to be?
It will be work for the staff, but these banks are kind of the ones, specifically Machias and Androscoggin Savings Bank are very used to doing this. So they have, if any of you want to read all these things, you can, but they have a very kind of elaborate spreadsheets about, on week one, we're going to do this for you and we're going to need this information, and you kind of work through it. And obviously, payroll is always the last thing that they touch because they want to make sure that they have all of your accounts set up and that all that's going to go okay. The last thing they want is to, have your payroll get all messed up, and that doesn't make anybody happy.
Mm.
When people don't get paid, they're usually not happy.
Get cranky.
Yeah. So we can do nothing, or we can do one of those. I would recommend that you do Androscoggin Savings Bank, but Machias is fine too. So whichever one.
And how does that, because I know that sometimes you're caught running. Most of the time they have a courier service, but every now and then you need to go do something. So I don't even know where the closest Machias Savings Bank is.
Right, they, I think, I'm trying to, they do have one in Portland, but it's further away. There's no question about it. They all offer courier services. So Machias Savings Bank would use the same one we're using now, because we do everything with Bangor Savings Bank. So every once in a while we get caught in the town office and I drive to Augusta to go get change, like coins, like quarters and stuff, because if we run out due to an influx of people bringing in cash, then that happens. So that's not as convenient as obviously it was probably when the relationship started, when the bank was on Main Street. Androscoggin Savings Bank, they actually run their own courier service. So they drive little cars around that say Androscoggin Bank. So they do it. Machias and Bangor and Bar Harbor, they would all use it's a very typical courier service that everybody else would use, but Andro does it in-house. So that's kind of an advantage to them too, that they're running their own money around, so it can get here a little faster.
Yeah, and then you'd only have to drive to Lewiston, Auburn, wherever you hit the first one on Main Street or
Correct.
Center Street or wherever.
Yeah,
so
that's true too. Yep.
So whereas Machias, you'd have to drive to Portland if you needed change in a hurry.
Yeah. Or I would take, or what we've had to do before in certain instances, like if I'm not there or Lori's not there, sometimes which is discouraged behavior, but sometimes they get caught. So like Sarah or whatever will go to her bank, which is over in Sabattis, and they'll let her take change because she has an account with them. You know, that kind of thing, because the bank here in town won't give us change.
No.
So we have to go somewhere else.
Exactly.
Before we
Justin,
figure out,
Yes, Mark.
Is there any difference in the interest rate that these banks pay on the money that we have there? Like our undesignated fund balance?
Yes, there is. That's a good question. So let me bring that up here. Put notes on here. I just gotta find the right page. So I gotta make sure, because I had to have them explain to me the difference between the SOFR rate and EFR rate and the treasury rate. I'm not a banker, so right now with Machias Savings Bank, they're saying that, well, at the time we did the interview, it was 3.98%. Would be what they would give us on our cash balance. And Andrew has it in here too, if you just give me a second to find it.
It's still what page it was on.
On the Andro one, on January 8th, it was 4.02, so they're very close.
Yep.
Basically 4%.
Okay,
And
Those were the higher of the two, so Bangor tends to be about a half a point less all the time.
so, is, the difference that you calculated between Machias and Andro, you said was between $2,000 and $3,000
Yeah, something like that.
a year in savings?
In fees. What Androscoggin Bank would counter, which is something that if I go too into the weeds, just let me know, is that they offer better rates to their depositors on their loans. So they will give us a slightly lower rate on our
We save on the
leases
other
and,
end.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
I see.
So right now we pay a slightly higher rate because we don't deposit with them.
Gotcha. Okay. And just as an FYI, just as a background.
Yeah.
How much are we going to save versus our current? If we hadn't even done this RFP and we just stayed with Bangor Savings, what's the difference between that and establishing this new relationship?
It's very, I get where you're going, but I don't really have a way to calculate that because like the interest rates change all the time and our cash balance changes all the time.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me with working with other banks in other towns that are smaller and more centered on municipalities is they are easier to contact and they tend to be a little more focused on what our needs are. So banking is very transactional and relationship based.
Yeah.
So when you go to conventions and stuff like that, like these banks are always there and they're always trying to figure out what are the services that we need to offer you people so that you keep depositing your money with us. And the bigger the bank is, the less they are concerned about Monmouth, if you will, just because we're small in the grand scheme of things.
Gotcha. All right, well, what are we gonna be borrowing this year? Maybe.
Cruiser, maybe in a dump truck.
Yeah. So.
Not a
So
whole lot.
what would your preference be?
I would probably go with Androscoggin Bank, just out of the simplicity of we already have a pretty significant relationship with them. And I think that and I certainly don't mean to be disparaging Bangor, said they've been a great partner for us. It's just the rates are better at Andro and they do like 300 something towns and quasi municipal entities. So this is a big part of their business.
So they're focused on
Yes, they
our
are.
needs.
That's correct.
Yeah, I feel like.
Do you need a motion? Do you want a motion?
That would be great. If
So I make a motion, we approve the RFP from Androscoggin Bank for our new town banking.
So the motion by Chris, and a second by Joe to use Androscoggin Savings Bank as our banking, for our banking needs. All those in favor?
I vote yes.
Thank you. And we've done a lot of stuff here already, so I think we're down to consider an open town meeting.
Yeah, so this is just a discussion I want to have about, there's just a couple things. I actually brought a little handout here for those that want to read it. So I got you the information. Just because it's been a long time since this since this was discussed. And I think that with us doing a special town meeting, I thought it was at least worth having a discussion with you folks about what the rules are and stuff. So Monmouth has had have been, what you consider a secret ballot town for a while. And I just want everybody to know that's out of practice, not out of requirement. So one town meeting can't bind the next one. So technically, every time that you create a warrant, the board decides how you're going to conduct that meeting. So the only way that you can force a certain type of meeting, whether it be the secret ballot, would be through a charter. And Monmouth doesn't have a charter. So it's really a choice of the board every year to say, we're going to continue the secret ballot process. I know that it was discussed at a town meeting, but like I said, one can't tell the next one what to do. So I just wanted you to have, that's all this piece of paper says, in case anybody wants it. It's just the background of that fact. And I didn't know whether you wanted to discuss it. I just wanted to put it on the agenda because we're doing an open town meeting through this process, and I don't think it's been discussed in a while. And if no one wants to have the discussion, that's fine with me too. But I just wanted to make sure that it was something that was for you to kick around.
To understand that we can do this because we can at any time choose how we want to have our town meetings.
That is correct.
And, I think it's a valid question if we're to gauge, by what we see on a Thursday night, it might not be a representative of doing it on a Saturday or whatever. Because a lot of towns do them on the weekends when, people aren't, I think that,
We used to.
yeah, we always did it on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And I think the very last one, though, was a weekday evening. No, I remember at the school, was it?
Maybe
Yeah.
Friday or something.
Yeah, but I think it's worth entertaining, putting something out there to ask people what their opinion is. Whether or not we have a non-binding question, asking people, would you like to return to an open town meeting? Rather than,
But if you present them with the advantages of each,
yes,
that would be important.
Yeah.
It did go up to vote once to restore the town meeting, and it failed.
But you don't, from what I'm understanding, you don't have to vote to restore the town.
No, we just decide.
no,
Right.
we
It's
decide.
Right,
just
you
a
can just
poll.
decide.
It's a way to find out what
Yeah, right.
residents
What
want.
people are thinking.
It's a
And I
survey.
think that,
Basically, yeah.
as we found out last year, people don't always understand the questions on the warrant or what it means or what they are. By having an open town meeting, you have the opportunity to have a discussion and say, this is for this, and we need this because of X, Y, and Z. If we don't have this, then A, B, and C can happen, and that discussion doesn't happen with a piece of paper. And, I think that, for people to have an open format where you can discuss these things. Because we don't always have a lot of participation.
Well, that's the thing, you don't have as many people voting, but the people that do vote are informed.
Exactly.
And care,
Okay.
Yes.
right? Because they have to show up
Yeah,
Yeah.
at a certain time and spend a certain amount of time there,
Yeah.
right.
right? It's not like it's convenient. Yeah, go ahead.
An open town meeting is the only thing that changes is when you vote on the warrant.
And you have to vote in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Well, you can call for a secret ballot.
Oh, it's part of an open town
Oh,
meeting?
yes,
Okay,
yeah.
So
so,
it doesn't change anything with the select board or the select board meetings.
Nope.
It's only on the voting.
so it's
Yeah.
just a giant meeting, probably in Compton Hall,
Comes to
Yeah.
hall.
right?
Or we used to-
At a certain time.
Well,
we had-
we're not having it at the school.
And
So
some of
we know
them,
that.
I mean, Justin explained to me earlier today that, most small towns have open town meetings and they last an hour. I can remember when we did them here in Monmouth back in the day, some of them could take like, I mean,
8 hours.
oh my God. And it was,
Because everybody
was-
can speak.
everyone can speak and you go until people are done speaking. And the moderator their job is just to sort of make sure that people are respectful and that everyone gets recognized when they want to speak. And so if people are passionate about one side or another and they can, make motions from the floor about, all sorts of things.
But the times were different then because Cumston Hall was pretty full. And one of my grandfather's jobs in retirement was delivering the town report to every household prior to the meeting. And we rode around in a car with my grandfather and delivered the town report.
To the
He
door.
drove us and we took everybody a town report and everybody had a town report with all of that information in there and every warrant article, so people could read it
Right.
ahead of time and come to the meeting. And I have all of my grandmother's, because she was a town clerk and she made notes in her town reports and the votes and notes along with it. But,
You could see who was delinquent in taxes.
oh, yes, well,
Oh,
we still do that.
don't wanna be on the
too.
list.
They're still there.
You don't wanna be on the
That's still
list.
there.
A
But
lot of
you never
times,
wanna be on the
what would
list.
happen at the town meeting is maybe someone would make a motion. Let's take Article 10 to 20 as a block.
Yes.
Yes.
And somebody might object, no, we want to discuss
Just
Article 19.
19, we'd like to.
And say, okay, fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it could move pretty quickly.
Yes, but it was always, it defined.
Good discussion.
Well, it was a good discussions, but it defined the town. I mean, I thought it gave us a personality. And having a closed, secret ballot vote is a totally different thing where nobody shows up to come to the discussions for why we're asking this or why we need it. And so there's never that information. People aren't as informed when all it is a piece of paper in front of you. Just like the RSU budget that says yes or no with no dollar amount attached to it. So, having that information out there, I think it's important to entertain the discussion. So whether we want to have, that question out there and get a feel for it, but I would be a proponent of having an open town meeting, so.
You gave me his property and he said yes.
Yes, yeah, yes.
He did, he told me you're my property.
Can we do it with the warrant?
We can put it in, I think, the last time there was a question, I think the advice from the town's attorney was not to make it a question if it's not like an effective
Yes,
instrument.
exactly,
So we can certainly have a piece of paper that is given out to people when
No,
they show up.
yeah.
I'm talking about this election.
Do what?
Have an open town.
Have an open town meeting for this budget and these.
Oh, you
warrant-
could, because it's your document. You create the warrant, you can make it any way you want.
Yeah.
Sure, yes, I favor it.
I would say yes. I mean, I think the biggest issue now is planning, if we
Well-
decide to do that in June,
I don't know.
planning with Dennis for a day that we can get into Cumston, because it would have to be before I think their lease starts on.
I mean, I think about, the last time we went through the voting process on our 30 some odd warrant items. And people were using social media as a tool for being informed. And then showing up without a whole lot of forethought. For example, on the first vote, they voted down us paying our debt service, which
It's impossible.
any logical person would say, that is not a good idea. What happens when you don't pay your mortgage, right? So,
Can I get Mark's opinion?
yeah, Mark, what do you think?
I am absolutely in favor of it. Joe hit it right on the head. You got a bunch of people that aren't really informed that are coming in and voting. Some of
From
them
the
out
hip.
of, out of spite. Yeah, I think it would be a great thing to move back in that direction. And then if you have something that don't pass, you can say, well, what do we need to do to make this pass? And have discussion and amend it and vote again.
We can do that.
Yeah, because you can change the dollar amount
I
as
think
you're
you
talking.
can.
Depending on the way-
change Down, but you
Yes,
can't.
Yes,
change
Right.
up.
change down,
Right.
but not up.
Unless you phrase the question open-ended, which a lot of boards don't want to do that, because you can phrase the question to say, what amount do you want to pay to the police department? And then you just leave that totally to the town meeting. And some people are uncomfortable because it could be 3 times what you actually need, you know, I mean, you don't know, or half of what you actually need.
Yes.
So you can do that too. I just want you to know, it's all about how you word it.
It seems to me like, people got all antsy and angry and anxious about, through social media. The last time we went through a town vote. And to me, the solution is like having a face-to-face conversation with somebody. Because you can't like misunderstand someone when you hear it from the source, right? And if there is a misunderstanding, you can work through it and have a conversation and not be like, vote against this to get even with so-and-so. I mean, oh my God. It was like the worst of Monmouth,
Yes.
right? Was like, I'm gonna use this as a tool to get revenge. Oh my goodness. All right, fine. I'm game.
I'm game too.
Me too.
Yep.
And again, you do have more time to get feedback too. And if you're considering doing it this year, you actually, you're buying yourself a bunch of time with the budget too, just so you know, because we don't need 2 months lead time to do the warrant and all that. So
7 days is.
7 days is a minimum. I mean, usually you try to give them like a month, but it would push your whole timeline back to like May instead of April 1st or whatever it usually is.
So can I respectfully request at our next meeting that you post the packet with an agenda item that says using an open town meeting for the June vote, so that people become aware that we are considering this prospect?
And
I mean, I don't know that not everyone's gonna assume that we were thinking about that.
exactly.
Vote on positions.
One thing that happens, of course, is that all the firemen come for the fire.
Yes, yes,
And then it used to be the teachers.
yes, that's right.
Would come and because it was early,
Right,
and you don't have a bunch of teachers there and then all leave.
right. They were approving the school budget
Right.
when we actually had a say about it. Yeah. Yeah, now we just.
That's always a,
Bring out the vote.
Can we have refreshments?
and we used to.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want
I can make some whoopie pies.
Get us some
Whoopie
Maybe
pies.
Dennis could line us up a food truck.
There you go.
Food truck for town meeting.
No Kushnock that day.
Want to just make the comment about September?
Oh, I haven't brought it before, our committees.
Right. Never mind.
Well,
That's a
that,
really
yes,
good
it's a really good plan, but anyway, so, a fundraiser.
All right.
But I've got to take it to my committee on Monday and then I'll be able to move forward. Because I am not autonomous.
We have right.
I know. Yes.
Oh, really?
Friday before Apple Fest, so. Friday. Okay,
Okay.
there we go.
Okay. So look on to the budget.
The
warrant, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to bring.
We're already done, hopefully.
I have to.
Okay.
Oh, anybody else see the other one?
It was earlier this week, wasn't it?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I didn't print it off because I knew you were gonna be here.
Yeah, no.
Today was the payroll.
Yeah,
Right, that's the one that's
payroll.
probably
She,
popping up.
she was an early bird with that.
Yeah.
She,
Oh, yeah, am I supposed to sign something today?
yeah, there was a payroll that
Payroll.
Jessica.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, I just gotta wait for the new link to come now. Hold on.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think I found it, but
Yeah, she put it out on Friday. That's why it's when so
yeah,
long
that's why I
ago.
couldn't find it here
Yeah.
real fast.
I didn't
Yeah,
have
it's
time to resend, so.
Based on the payroll warrant that I signed today, I think maybe we should give a shout out to Olivia for the amount of hours she's putting in for the town. Obviously filling in for a lot of Dana's time, but I don't know how many hours she's putting in, but it must be a lot.
Yes, she has her and the, right now she's doing a big, a bunch of it. And then, Chief Ferland and the, Winthrop Police Lieutenant is also helping us out on the weekends so that somebody, they're not patrolling or anything, but they're answering the calls, the complaints. So he's helping out, the Winthrop, Police Lieutenant is doing it basically in sort of solidarity with Dana, basically, because we're not compensating him for it or anything, but he's,
Wow.
they're all, he's home. I think he's still got a little ways to go, but.
It's still pretty bedridden.
Blue Rock Earthworks, $2,772 for materials transport. Dennis K. Burke, gas for Public Works, actually it's for everybody, $1,698. Elon Financial, it's the credit card for the office, so IT support, business services, supplies, things like that. $3,365. ART appraisal, that's the Reval firm, $24,702. Lawson Products, it's parts for the Public Works equipment, $1,059. New England Salt Company, obviously, $10,268. Nickerson and O'Day, the architects for the building next door, $11,899. Paul's Design, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, he's the contractor, I'm sorry. Paul's Design Project, $1,035. Rinaldi Energy, that's diesel for the town, $7,341. RSU number 2, $549,308. See here. Is there anything else? State of Maine Bureau of Motor Vehicles, $11,578. For a total of $633,763.25.
I make a motion, we approve warrant number 15 for fiscal year 24-25.
Second that.
The motion by Ken, second by Chris to approve the warrant. 15. All those in favor?
I vote yes.
Thank you.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay.
All those in favor?